Let's hope nobody. Good morning. Good morning. Well, good afternoon now. Excuse me. Good afternoon. My name is Trayon White, Sr. I'm the Ward 8 Council Member Chair on the Committee on Recreation, Libraries, and Youth Affairs. Today is Wednesday, February 16, 2022. We are meeting remotely using the Zoom platform. The time is now 12:11 p.m. And I'm calling to order this agency performance oversight hearing. Today, we will have performance agency oversight hearing for DYRS, also known as Department of Youth Rehabilitation Services. DYRS is responsible for supervision, custody, and care of young people charged with delinquent acts in the District of Columbia in one of the following circumstances. One, youth who are detained in DYRS facility while awaiting adjudication. Two, youth who are committed to DYRS by a DC Family Court judge following adjudication. You can be initially committed to the agency under 18 and may remain in care until the age of 21. Youth who are committed to the agency by the court are placed at home, in residential facilities, out-of-state facilities, community-based shelter homes, therapeutic foster care, independent living programs, and comprehensive supportive services to committed youth, also known as group homes. Community-based residential facilities, also known as group homes. The agency provides comprehensive supportive services to committed youth in our secure facilities within the community. DYRS is designed to help young people get on the right track and successfully transition into adulthood. DYRS with fellow DC agencies, community partners, juvenile justice experts to achieve these goals. We collaborate to implement innovative, research-based models that align with the best practices in the juvenile justice system. DYRS plays a vital role in development of youth progress who have experience in the criminal justice system. As Director Hillary Kearns is closing out her first year in the helm of DYRS, we look forward to her testimony. We also look forward to the testimony of the witnesses here today, especially our youth and young adults. Let me check and see if any other members are present. Not seeing any. Okay. 1 second. As I call the first panel of witnesses, they will be promoted from the audience. I think that the first 8 are at DYRS using the same computer. All public witnesses appearing on their own behalf will be allowed 3 minutes. Those who are testifying as an ANC or in an official capacity will get 5 minutes. So today we'll start with our public witnesses. I'm just going to row. Youth JR, UCF, Youth DW, Youth JD, Youth MW, Chantel Smith, Shaka Van, and Urshela Cook. That's the order I have. If I'm wrong, send me a message so I can know what to do next. We can bring them onto the panel and Youth JR can get started.
Good morning, Councilmember Trayon White. What's the second one after JR? JR is not present right now.
TF. And good morning.
CF. Okay. Okay, he's ready.
Okay.
Hello, my name is C. Fitzhugh. I have been a DYRS youth since 2016, but I recently turned 21 in December and I had the opportunity to apply for post-commitment services. I'm currently enrolled in the Back to Basics barbering program. The programs that I've enjoyed the most are probably the outings with the AC staff when we get to spend quality time together as a unit instead of looking for reasons to, fight or disagree over little things. And I like when we get to keep our minds and brains rather than playing like trivia and bingo and winning prizes and stuff like that. I feel like these programs are important because they're teaching us how to coexist with each other as young adults. They're teaching us about friendly competition and just to relax with one another and have fun without having any conflict and stuff. DYRS has helped me to acquire multiple positions of employment throughout my breaks in between semesters when I was attending Lincoln University. They consistently pushed me to get my barbering license, which is going over a year now. I'm supposed to be the first DYRS youth to finish the barbering program. I'm trying to make history. And I personally would like to thank Mom Johnson, because she's been there for me for like 4 years plus. Miss Williams, Miss Powell, Miss Fields, like the education part, the employment part, they're just so supportive here. They help me out when I don't got it. They help me out with groceries in the house. I'm just happy I got to have them in my life.
Thank you. Next witness.
Who's the next one, Councilman?
Okay.
Okay,
Make it in the chat. Let me see.
okay,
DW.
okay, she's ready.
All right.
Hello, my name is DW. I am a DYRS committee youth. I've been committed since 2017. I'm currently enrolled in a Dolls and Dreams program. I enjoyed this program with Dolls and Dreams and it's running because the program teaches me how to be a young woman and build business and self-care and how to have love for yourself. The programs that they provide for us help me in my daily life because I find myself getting bored at home and stuff, and I've been able to do things on my own. So programs that help me with structure and keep me busy. DYRS has helped me constantly stay in school. I've attained my state ID. And one of my goals was to get in this school called Challenge Academy. They helped me do that. But I decided to do something different.
Okay, is that finished?
I'm finished.
She's finished, council member. Next, I have JD.
Okay, perfect.
Hello, hello. My name is JD. I've been with DYRS since I think last February. But I was currently enrolled in UEG, AC field trips, summer youth. That was through DYRS, and I was in a internet cafe. The programs I have enjoyed the most was the UEG one, because I always been into media. In that program, they told me how to make movies, stuff like that. But the programs that's important to me, these programs are important because it was fun. It helped me waste time. And I enjoy making short films. The AC program helped me get more out because I was in a group home at that time. No, I'm not. And DYRS had helped me to accomplish, to get my ID. They applied me for SYAP and they gave me a fun structure and activities. And they also helped me get in school. Oh, and the staff I would like to thank would be Mom Johnson, Miss Fields, Mr. Mock, Mr. James, and Miss Williams. That's it. Thank you.
That's all the youth that I have available right now, Councilmember White.
Thank you. Congratulations on the chance to make history in your barber's license. to CF.
Thank you.
When do you anticipate getting your license?
We actually have been in the process, like waiting. We're waiting on the like organization to send us our email for our testing date. It's me and 2 other people that's been awaiting like the testing date. So we just studying and preparing, packing bags now. Just going over my textbooks, waiting to get that date.
Okay, so you have to take the exam.
Yes, I got to take the hands-on and the practical. It should be 30 days or less though.
Okay. That's phenomenal, especially having a trade, a skill that you can that you can always have and make decent income. How long have you been involved with DYRS?
I've been involved with them since 2016, but I came from an out-of-state residential program after I completed it with flying colors and been involved with them since about late 2018. And I was in college and still been involved with them until this day.
How old are you?
I just turned 21 in December.
Oh, congratulations, the big one.
Thank you, thank you.
Let me, how has COVID impacted your ability to go to class and go to, cut hair and just interact with the public? And also, what's the other enrollment like from your peers in this particular barbering class?
COVID was very frustrating because we had to alternate from in-class and hands-on learning with our everyday instructor to going on Zoom and consistently doing book work and staring at a screen. Like, it's kind of hard to learn when you're definitely trying to learn a hand-on trade to reading a book every day or trying to, face-to-face on a computer. But my classmates, they are very involved. Some people fall off here and there, but as peers, and peers, we use each other to keep each other up, try to get it finished together.
For someone that's been involved with DYRS for 6 years, it sounds like, let me ask you this. When you first got involved, how was the interactions between your parents? Were they involved? Or was DYRS involved in any way in your household and your schooling? Tell me about those 3 things.
Yes, my father not in the picture, but my mom and DYRS has always been involved. It's like a co-parenting thing, to be honest, since I had to belong to the state because of my mistakes. But yeah, with school, my mom always been on top of that. My mom finished the application and the FAFSA and everything for me to go to college, but DYRS, they just gave me them grants and them funds that I needed, that final push. But everything is good on this end, to be honest.
And let me ask you this, because I heard you talk about you was in out-of-state placement, correct?
Yes.
So I'm also concerned about sending our youth and young adults away. And DYRS knows this, I express it all the time. And I guess I'm trying to figure out what benefits did you receive in going away versus receiving services here? How did you feel like that helped you or hurt you, or what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I was in Pennsylvania it was like a military boarding school. I didn't even get the detention feel from it because there wasn't no bars and no gates. It was a unsecure residential. You know what I'm saying? So I had freedom. It was a peer-ran program. They had 21 vocational, vocational shops on campus. I ain't gonna say you do what you want, but I still use stuff from there. I wake up and make my bed. I still roll my clothes. I still look females from the neck up. I still tell all my elderlies yes, no, and it's just little stuff. I feel like you should give the youth an option. You shouldn't just send them to a straight shutdown, secure facility, because it's not going to be. You don't want them to feel like an animal. You want them to feel like they have a chance for rehabilitation.
And what facility were you at?
I was at Blue Mill Schools in Pennsylvania. It was in Conquerville, Pennsylvania. Okay. Yeah.
So I guess do you think that was good for you? Did you like it? Because sometimes when you're a youth, you don't think it's good for you because you're away. but in hindsight at 21, your perspective is a little different. Tell me about your thoughts on that.
It actually was a blessing in disguise, because if I was in DC or if I was around people that knew who I was and knew my face around that time, then it probably would have been more dangerous for my well-being. But I did stuff I never did before, never seen before. I powerlifted, I wrestled, I ran track, I threw shot put and javelin, played football, 25 games plus. I'm a national champion. I lifted in Wisconsin. I did a lot of stuff that I never would have did if I was in DC. So it was like a blessing in disguise.
That's I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you. Let me ask, is DW still available?
Yes, I'm available.
So you talked about Dolls and Dreams program,
Yes,
and we are very familiar with this.
I said yes, Mrs. Remy.
Yes, I want you to tell me what initially got you into the program, and what some of the takeaways you got from the program that's helping you where you are today.
For real, I wasn't really for real, I really didn't like want to be engaged. I found myself not wanting to be engaged, like when I first got committed and stuff. But like she will always be consistent with me. She will work with me, like call me. Like every time I just came down to the achievements, it's something that she always wanted. Like she could see me doing it. So I'm just like, I'm just try. And then one day we just did this little group where we was making like skincare stuff. So I mean, it was cool. And then before I even like joined the program, I did want to start my own business. I was indecisive of what I wanted to do, but I mean, skincare would be a good business or whatever. Yeah, I believe she helped with it. Well, I know she helped with it.
Okay. So I guess I'm trying to figure out, because I hear that and looking at the data, there are a number of youth that we have in our system, but not as many participating. What do you say we can do more to ensure greater participation or engagement in programs, not just Dolls and Dreams, but programs overall?
I mean, you can't force anyone to do anything, but I know, just try to get in reach and like in contact with you. You gotta stay engaged with them. Like you can't just say, "Oh, it's a program" or something, or like just inviting them to go. Like tell them more. Conversate with them, let them know more about the program and the benefits and stuff that come with the program. Not just that it's a program and you want so much money. I can't hear you.
I said, what keeps you coming?
What keeps you coming?
Oh, what keeps me coming? My son.
Okay. And my second question was, how old are you?
I am 17.
Okay, great. And so what next for you? You involved with the staff there, you seem to be engaged, you participate in civic advocacy, being here today. You have a child. What's next for you in the near future?
I do want to continue Dolls and Dreams. I mean, I ain't gonna say I just started, but I did just start it. So I'm gonna continue my commitment over in May 10th. So I mean, I'm gonna just do this until then. I mean, I do want to accomplish something out of this program, start my own business or something. But I graduated this year. So
okay, that's my next question. Education. You graduate from where?
Maya Angelou State.
Okay, that's great. All right, well, I appreciate you coming and speaking today. Is JR still there?
Yeah.
Let me know if I'm missing anyone, because I know it was 8, but I only see 3.
Yes, I have the you spoke to Councilmember White, and I also have JR who just joined us as well. You know, shopping. And then I have a parent with me as well.
Okay, that's what. Okay. And I'm gonna get you guys next. I apologize. So JR, you said JR just joined you?
Yes.
Okay, we give a minute to share.
Okay.
Okay, I'm Joe. It's been cold out. I've been
I
bringing.
hear a lot of noise, so I can barely. If you get too close to the screen or device, it'd be helpful.
More closer to one. Hey, I'm Joe. I'm a DYRS youth. Not currently enrolled in anything but workforce development. Like, I'm enrolled in workforce development. I haven't been to that program
How long you been doing it?
4 years.
Okay.
Since I recommitted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been recommitted for a year. No, I never been to that program.
Okay. How's it work on?
Good. My job went well. I work 2 jobs.
You got connected through work.
Okay.
Not like 2 jobs.
All
That's it.
right.
Good.
Say that's it.
All right, that's it.
JR, how old?
19.
Okay. So outside of working 2 jobs, what else do you do? If you can, I don't know, it might be consuming a lot of your time.
Oh no, I'm about to go to UDC so I can become a social worker.
Okay, when you start there?
I'm working on it right now with Mr. Sammy Sanchez.
Okay, that's excellent. How do you feel that the interaction is with other peers your age and with DYRS? Because it seems like you're a go-getter. You got 2 jobs. You're here today. You're engaged. You got that going on. You're going to college. So you one of our shining apples. I'm just trying to make sure we can engage those. They had the same potential as you, DW, and the others to ensure that they can be integrated in this system as well.
Okay.
You don't know what else you can do already to take care of you.
Up y'all budget.
Oh, the budget. So it's more money.
I don't know.
And it's fine if you don't know. I mean, I think you just being genuine yourself is good for me. It's just to, engage youth, because a lot of times we have hearings in the DC City Council, and we talk about what's happening with the youth and the young adults in the city and what needs to happen, but very rarely, especially outside of DYRS hearings, which probably we hear from 3 to 4, maybe 10 youth at the most. We don't hear from youth and young adults as much. And so I'm always encouraged to hear from you guys, because you are the voice and power of the city, believe it or not. There are some great testimonies and stories I've heard over the years where people engaged and, may have made some mistakes, but have used the resource around them to get on the right track. But it's very important as you go and become successful to go back and give back and grab someone else. And I think that the more we do that, the more we change the curve as we develop our youth and young adults into the leaders of this city. So I want to thank you for joining us this afternoon. I want to move to the other panelists. If you can jump on and introduce yourself to me.
You want to
I know
speak
it's
to
the
the
parent.
JD or you want to speak to the parent, council member?
So I have DWJW. I'm not sure who all is still here.
Yes, you spoke to DW, so all you have left is JD.
Did he? Okay, what about MW?
MW wasn't able to make it today.
Okay, great. Lee, and then Chantel Smith.
Yes. No, I have Mrs.
Okay.
Shaka Van with me.
I didn't hear the last you said.
Shaka Van.
Yep, I have that. Next. Yep. Okay.
Okay, so you want to speak to JD first, and then I'll do Shaka.
Yep. Let's
Okay.
Ms. JD.
He's ready whenever you are.
wait.
Hello, this is.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Did you have any additional questions for him?
Oh, he went.
No, go right ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, he already gave his testimony earlier. He just wanted to follow up to see if he had any additional one.
Oh, okay. I apologize. Nope, I don't have any additional questions for him at the moment.
Okay. I'm gonna move over to Mrs. Van,
All right, cool.
and this is the parent.
Got it.
Hello, I'm Shaka Van. I'm speaking on behalf of the Credible Messenger team and the family engagement teams. And I'm speaking on them because I have 2 kids that's committed with DYRS. And during this process, if I couldn't reach out to their case managers, the family engagement, and the Incredible Messenger team, I never went out, even calling at 11, 12 o'clock at night. Somebody was there to represent me or to answer my questions, to calm me down. Also, my personal family engagement, she helped me continue my goals of starting a business. Of course, if you got 2 kids that's been committed, you get sidetracked. So I moved, I wanted to start a business, but she was right there, like nagging in my ear. You gotta do this, you gotta do that. I was able to get registered with DCRA, start my business. We're still working on all of my goals. Anytime I call them, any of them, like I said, I have 2, so I'm dealing with 2 separate teams. I can call any of them and they're right there. If I don't get one, the other one is gonna get to me. If the other one don't get to me, somebody within that Incredible Messenger and family engagement team is gonna get back with me within, I wanna say, the day or within 30 minutes to a day. Never had no problem, like they're very supportive. Other than that, I don't know, but they're amazing.
Thank you. Who's next? I'll come back with questions.
That's it. That are present with me. You can ask questions if you need to.
Okay. All right, Ms. Van, I want to say congratulations on starting your business.
Thank you.
How's that coming along?
It's some trials and errors, but it's coming along.
Okay. You gotta send it to me on my social media so I can send it out. Get you some more followers, get you some more support.
Thank you.
Social media is my name, TRAYN, last name White.
Okay.
If you DM it to me, make sure you let me know who you are because I got a lot of DMs.
Okay.
Let me ask you this: what other supports do you see that DYRS could provide to better assist? Because I hear you said you had 2 sons, correct?
Yes.
In DYRS. Okay.
Mhm.
Are they around the same age or in two different age groups?
One is 17 and one is 15.
Okay, so and I heard you say that they were, the staff is tremendous, is supportive of you. I wanted to ask, because for me, sometimes the frustration is that, because I remember I used to work in partnership with DYRS, and we used to do these family team meetings, and sometimes it'd be, they got a new name now. There used to be these family team meetings where everybody come up with a plan for the young person. Then when he or she comes home, it's about following up and implementing the plan. I'm not sure where integration of that plan, but can you speak to your involvement in that plan and where you are with your children with that plan?
I'm there every step of the way with every meeting, every 90 days, every hearing, everything. I'm there every step of the way. Now, as far as what can be better, they ask these kids their goals. And my boys, I'm gonna say my 15-year-old, since he's been committed with you guys, his goal was to start a clothing line. If that is a goal and y'all pushing him towards that goal, where can y'all help with the goal? Because since he done came out of a new beginning, I've been the one providing everything. Is there like some type of workshop or anything? Just anything that y'all can help them when they setting their own particular goals, and then they keep reiterating these same goals.
So what you're saying, that your 15-year-old is back in the community with you, correct?
No, okay, so the engagement team set up a safety transfer because it was an issue that happened. So both of my boys are placed in a foster care placement. Because of safety.
Got you. I got you. And so figure out how to help him, help him get those goals together. Being as though he wants to start his own clothing line, is what I'm hearing. Just follow up and support is what I'm hearing.
Well, I on my end, I got it. I've been doing it. But my thing is, if you guys are telling them they need to set these goals and do this and do that, where do they come in and help as well?
Okay, so that's a question that we'll be asking, not just with your boys, but with other youth in our system. And I often speak with the director as relates to those who are placed in several different living facilities outside of the traditional New Beginnings or YSC. So we appreciate that, your input on that. Any other last comments for me?
I just wanted to know, like, what do you, I seen your Instagram page, you running for mayor?
Yeah, but I can't talk about that right now, but yes, I am.
Oh, all right. That's nice, congratulations.
Okay, also, backing off of when I was saying about the t-shirt line, the young lady that's sitting right here, maybe y'all should implement like a entrepreneur program. Because I done been to several Dolls and Dreams. Oh, see, I never.
What's the name of it? Travis Scott or something.
Oh, see, I wasn't aware of that.
We don't tell everybody everything.
Yeah, so. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. Sorry, they filling me in on some new stuff. Never mind. It's okay.
Okay.
I was thinking maybe they should do an entrepreneur place, but I'll show you why. We did. Oh.
All right. Thank you. Next I have on a witness list Ursula Cook. Alexandra Field, Cherie Moore, and Tina Fruit. All right, do we have Miss Ursula Cook? If you are here, can you identify yourself in the chat so we can elevate you to the panel? Hearing none. Miss Alexandra Fields Evans, you can begin your testimony.
Thank you, Councilmember White. Good afternoon, Chairman White and the members of the Committee on the Recreation, Libraries, and Youth Affairs. My name is Alexandra Fields, and I'm the Senior Manager at CASA for Children of DC. We are honored to have the opportunity to testify today. CASA DC recognizes the vital importance of rehabilitation services for our youth in the juvenile justice system, and particularly opportunities for restorative justice and transition support. For 20 years, CASA DC has provided compassionate, trauma-informed care for court-involved youth in DC. We were founded in 2002 with an initial focus on foster youth. CASA DC has provided vital support for over 1,900 DC youth and trained more than 2,000 volunteers. We were founded with a vision that every vulnerable court-involved youth in DC is supported by a positive adult figure who can serve as a consistent support and a voice for that youth so that they can thrive. This work is driven by volunteers, members of the DC community dedicating their time and passion to supporting DC's future and most vulnerable youth. CASA stands for Court-Appointed Special Advocates, specially trained volunteers who provide mentorship and best interest advocacy to court-involved youth. CASA volunteers form a mentor-like relationship with youth, engaging them in positive activities and assisting them with goal attainment. CASA volunteers work with only one youth or one sibling group to provide individualized support. Based on the relationship formed, CASA volunteers represent the youth's best interest in the court. CASA for Children of DC is committed to providing court-involved youth with individualized support to achieve present goals and improve lifetime outcomes across 4 domains, which are permanency, well-being, education, and life skills. We are the only organization in DC that unites child advocacy with mentorship. In fact, it is the personalized one-on-one relationships that our volunteers form with the youth that drives our advocacy, ensuring the child's voice is heard in court. Through CASA DC's original mission focused on supporting foster youth, in our years of DC to DC youth, the intersection of needs between foster youth and juvenile justice involved youth became painfully clear. The foster care to prison pipeline is a reality that too many of our youth face. Youth who have experienced abuse and neglect are more likely to be arrested as a juvenile, offend more frequently, and begin at younger ages than their peers. Approximately 80% of juvenile justice youth experience trauma similar to their counterparts in the child welfare system. Understanding the impact of childhood trauma on justice-involved youth is imperative to providing youth with appropriate support and preventing recidivism. Recognizing that childhood trauma may be at the heart of the status offense, or public offense is essential to ensuring that the child receives proper treatment and to prevent recidivism. Youth who have experienced trauma are profoundly impacted. They face lower academic achievement and increased risk of future unemployment, homelessness, and high-risk behavior. Adverse childhood experiences causes trauma have been linked to risky behavior, lessened school performance, relationship difficulties, and chronic health conditions, diminishing opportunities throughout adulthood. These same conditions align with the risk factors to entering the juvenile justice system. CASA DC applauds the Department of Youth Rehabilitation Services for providing committed youth with the case management and wraparound services. Taking a trauma-informed approach, DYRS dedication to connecting youth with behavioral health services, educational support, and even recreation opportunities like physical fitness and creative arts is imperative to healing childhood trauma and preventing future justice involvement. However, there is more that can be done. CASA DC hopes that through future partnership, the CASA model can provide additional benefit to the youth committed to DYRS. In 2015, recognizing the intersection of juvenile justice system and the number of foster youth served by CASA for Children of DC, the organization expanded its work to begin serving juvenile justice impacted youth in the specialty courts. Based on a strong success and identified need, in 2019, the work further expanded to include youth not only in specialty courts, but in juvenile delinquency cases. CASA DC's Bridges program was formed in 2019, and since that time has supported more than 70 justice-involved youth to build bridges. That is to be resilient, be individuals, be determined, be great, be educated, and be safe. With this demonstrated success, the Bridges Juvenile Advocates are specially trained volunteers who provide mentorship and best interest advocacy to the justice-involved youth. Through this support, Bridges aims to prevent youth from becoming multi-system involved, decrease instances of recidivism, and promote diversion opportunities. How do we do this? The Bridges program has built its work around key protective factors specifically identified to prevent juvenile delinquency, the presence of a positive supporting adult, exposure to multiple experiences, fostering healthy activities for the youth, promoting pro-social behaviors, and addressing learning needs. First and foremost, Bridges Juvenile Advocates for a relationship, and over 80% of Bridges youth have substantially engaged with their BGA. With this support in FY20, 96% of the Bridges youth served by CASA had a trusted adult figure in their life. Secondly, Bridges promotes pro-social behavior. The BGA is working with the youth on developing positive relationships, engaging in their community. 2/3 of the justice impacted youth engaged in building the communication with their BGA mentor. 70% were supported with healthy relationships, and 70% set proactive goals with their volunteers. 88% of Bridges youth with their BGA received educational support in FY21. The Bridges program, though young, has demonstrated promising results. Less than 25% of Bridges youth have reoffended, compared to 33% of DYRS youth. We are confident that the success of the Bridges program will continue with additional expansion and partnership, bringing the benefit of CASA services to the youth. In prior conversations with Department of Youth and Rehabilitation Services, DYRS has expressed to CASA DC the need and interest in greater educational support. In particular, DYRS has noted that the committed youth could benefit from tutoring services and support in attending IEP meetings. While DYRS is providing youth with support as communicated to CASA DC, their staff can only do so much, and a lot can be missed when it comes to education. There is an additional learning concern when youth leave DYRS. In many cases, educational credits earned while committed are lost. Additional support is needed to help with the credit recovery when transitioning back to the school environment. This is particularly important as poor academic performance and school dropout are risk factors for delinquency and crime. Where youth face a difficult transition back to the school environment, be positioned for recidivism rather than success. Education is one of CASA DC's core areas of support. CASA volunteers provide strategic academic support and advocacy for their youth. In 2021, 87% of CASA volunteers provided education and support and advocacy for their youth, enabling 77% to be on grade level and 77% to have a positive feelings about school. 88% were approaching at or exceeding expectations. For CASA youth with a no, their GPA averaged 2.6. At the end of 2021, CASA DC hired an educational specialist to develop educational services at the organization. Plans are currently in process to provide CASA volunteers with specialized training on supporting youth's core academic competencies, to provide tutoring, in addition to strengthen training, educational advocacy, and special education needs. With this support, CASA volunteers can help to fill educational gaps and answer support needs for committed and transitioning DYRS youth. Additionally, the presence and involvement of a caring, supportive adult is a known protective factor against justice-involved. While many youth in DYRS are provided with mentoring services, those services do not provide the one-on-one mentor advocate model that CASA volunteers provide. Additionally, as CASA volunteers are based in the community rather than professionals, they offer a separation from those connected to DYRS services, providing an additional person who the youth can view as a trusted adult, providing the youth with mentorship, but educational support and advocacy. And in conclusion, CASA for Children of DC is so grateful for the opportunity to support DC's justice-involved youth, providing them with one-on-one mentorship and advocacy to improve outcomes. While our juvenile justice system continues to expand, there is more that can be done for DC's committed youth. We look forward to future opportunities to partner with DYRS. Thank you, Chairman White and the members of the Committee on Recreation, Libraries, and Youth Affairs. Thank you to the Department of Youth Rehabilitation Services for all the support that you provided to the youth to prevent future justice involvement. We welcome any questions and thank you all for your time and your support.
Thank you. We'll come back with questions. Is Cherie Moore here? I can't see her.
Yes, sir.
All right, you're next.
Thank you and good morning. Chairman White and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to discuss Progressive Life Center's administrative partnership with DYRS's Community Programming Initiative, which I will now refer to as CPI or the Service Coalition Program interchangeably. My name is Cherie Moore and I have been the Program Director of CPI for the last 3 fiscal years. As you know, Chairman White, PLC is the administrative partner to DYRS for the CPI program. We are tasked with supporting DYRS's internal CPI team and related staff, overseeing and managing the day-to-day operations of the Service Coalition programs. We organize and manage special events and programs that occur at the achievement centers and in the community. Further, PLC provides technical supervision to the Service Coalition by ensuring appropriate service delivery, where my staff and myself review lesson plans in advance for substance. We schedule and conduct random site observations, as well as site visits and audits to ensure contractual obligations are being met. We regularly record youth activity data, youth progress, and outcomes achievements by daily monitoring of youth program attendance, reviewing notes placed in the DYRS case management system, and weekly, monthly monitoring of progress notes and monthly summaries. We also have a financial management responsibility where our staff conducted their review of each provider's monthly submitted invoice to ensure timely and accurate cost reimbursement payments. To further support the coalition, PLC maintains a relationship with the Center for Nonprofit Advancement, the center, to enhance capacity building to the providers. Together with our internal training coordinator, PLC and the center has offered 46 hours of training to date this fiscal year. We know that our providers have the experience and the know-how to navigate community work, and we build on their strengths to minimize an over-reliance on outside experts in providing resources or developing solutions for community issues. With now 12 separate providers making up the coalition, they often tag teams together on projects and events, which data has shown brings more youth into these safe spaces. As one of the young men mentioned earlier, Back to Basics may work together with Dolls and Dreams to make a bigger event so that more kids come out and get access to those programs. Since the last hearing, providers have returned to in-person programming and visits at the Achievement Centers, YSC, and New Beginnings. Credible Messenger programs have continued to provide programming at their own locations, and program modality pivots when needed due to the COVID-19 or the Omicron variant outbreaks amongst program offices or DYRS facilities having quarantine periods or any Achievement Center closures. I would like to quickly highlight a few youth and family outcomes that have been achieved over the last year from our providers. Again, a young man that spoke earlier stole a little bit of my thunder, but I was going to share that Back to Basics currently has 3 young people awaiting dates to sit for the borrowing state exam. So that was nice to hear that he has as a goal to become one of the first kids from DYRS to achieve this certification. And currently, Sasha Bruce has a young lady that has been enrolled in college for over a year now, as well as another young man that you heard of earlier about to enroll in UDC. So that's phenomenal. While PLC functions as an intermediary, it is important to us to ensure that we are meeting the needs of the providers, as well as producing the deliverables for our funder, DYRS. PLC staff and leadership are open to constructive feedback and survey the providers, DYRS youth, and their families, as well as the community throughout the fiscal year. Suggestions and recommendations provided inform PLC internal professional development needs, trainings for the CPI, and technical assistance sessions. The most recent consumer input survey distributed, we achieved an overall satisfaction rating of 86%. And 85% is our goal. In conclusion, to briefly speak on how PLC and DYRS support violence reduction in the district, DYRS continues to grant Credible Messenger providers with funds to employ violence interrupters to assist with violence de-escalation efforts. The Achievement Center providers also play a role where they must achieve violence intervention outcomes for their programs. PLC supports efforts in reducing violence by bringing awareness to providers through training, assisting and developing appropriate youth and family outcomes, and collaborating with DYRS and hosting violence intervention events as a means of community outreach. PLC is delighted to support Director Carnes and DYRS and appreciate the director's engagement in the CPI initiative thus far. I conclude my testimony and once again, thank the committee for allowing me this time to speak. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Tina Fruit. Forgive me if I messed your name up this correctly.
Thank you very much, Councilmember White. And first of all, let me say thank you for pronouncing my name correctly. No one ever does that. So that's a big thing for me. So with that being said, my name is Tina Fruit, and I'm the Executive Director and Founder of Courtney's House. Based here in Washington, D.C., Courtney's House works with youth who are sex trafficked. We're the only survivor-run, African-American run for almost 20 years in the D.C. area. This is actually my first time testifying at DYRS, and I want to first commend the youth that we're talking, especially about those wonderful programs. And I want to start off by actually answering a question that you posed, Councilmember White. And what you asked was, there are so many programs that are not being utilized by some of the youth. And what do you think, you asked the youth, that may be? Well, I will say that over these years, being almost to 20 years now, doing work in this area on sex trafficking and working in silo kind of with DYRS, I would definitely say the answer to that on our end would be 0 youth have ever been able to fully complete any of those programs, which I actually think are really great programs that it would be great if our youth could utilize, but the reason why they can't is because of their trauma and still being in sex trafficking situations, both boys and girls. So over the years, and when I say we worked in silo kind of together with DYRS, it would be for, yes, we do have some paid trainings throughout the years. It's been quite a few, and trainings that we actually have trained the staff, and even the staff at some of their long-term facilities like in Laurel, right? That they have. And I will tell you, in that training, we didn't have one male that would come to the training. And what I heard about, and I mean one male staff, this was for the staff. And so the reason and why I asked, of course, I went and asked them why they didn't, because when they weren't there on break, I decided to go. And this is about 3 years ago. I decided to go ask them why they didn't attend. And they felt that that is like more of the women that they were on. But many of the boys that are trafficked are on their pods, right? And them not wanting to engage or thinking that they were all just identified as gay. And so that's a problem that I think we could work together more and see. There are major gaps. And so the major gaps would be, although I do work with the youth, and it would be through the foster care system that get committed, right, through that way, or DRS refers you to us in the last referral about 4 years ago, and that was for free. And so that referral just means they may refer to the services. The issue is there are many, many youth that we do work with. So I'll give you a for instance. When they refer youth to programs that are out of state, maybe those programs say that they have sex trafficking programs. So we can help with this because I train all over the country and I know these programs do not have, so they're paying them for this, yes. But our youth are still, we meet with our youth when they are at programs and when they are committed in DRS right now. We meet with our youth weekly. So we meet with them once a week for one-on-ones. And then on Saturdays, they join with their laptops. So I do want to commend DRS for that, making sure that they can join our support groups. But do you hear what I'm actually saying to you? So DRS would say, we have therapists that cover sex trafficking. Well, if that was the case, they wouldn't be joining our support groups, right? And we wouldn't be doing one-on-ones with them. And so here's the thing. I'm not saying you don't have them. You do. I know the people. The problem is our youth are not telling you everything. And they're not telling you everything because you're still DRS. So working with a community-based program can actually merge this together to get those youth to open up. So what happens is they talk about all their other traumas except for the trafficking pieces, right? And so 100% of all of our youth that leave any DRS programming, they are back in the life within 2 weeks. And so that's very important. That's because if we're not engaging with them too, they're not getting those services. It's also important for us to engage because say our engagement was before, they entered DRS and was committed. Well, how about this? Well, then we lose communication with our youth, right? Who are still reaching out to us. I think these are fixable things that we can do, and we can make sure our youth utilize these programs, especially with the boys. 100% of our boys that have exited DRS are currently now in jail in DC jail. Our boys, and as you know, with any type of abuse, become offenders of some kind. Robberies that are here in DC, and our youth are dual jackets, right? So it's not like they're going to jail because they were sex trafficked, right? They were sex trafficked, and that's not the reason. They stole a car, they robbed somebody. The trick, maybe allegedly they stabbed someone, but behind the scenes was a pimp. So at these facilities that our group leaves, like Chloe House, I want to say about 90% of all of our youth who go to Chloe House leave, and that's because of pimp. maybe pick them up. The thing is, we are in contact with that youth. They contact us, and we are working with the police on the back end or working with the youth to come in, but we're missing that piece, a DYRS.
I want to thank you over your time.
Thank you.
I'm back. All right, so I want to jump back real quick. My staff can help me. Is anyone on the panel that I didn't call? You just gotta know that I'm using my phone, so I can't see the entire screen, nor where I can see the chat from my computer. I want to go back to Ms. Fields Evans real quick.
Yes.
Yes. What? I guess what are the biggest impediments to furthering your work with in partnership with DYRS and the government overall?
I think just getting a meeting and really sitting down to just forward some of the initiatives. A lot of times when kids are committed to DYRS, because they're there, sometimes CASA is not viewed as a viable option for them, but just really for them to understand that we're there to support their work, whether that's education or whatever initiatives they have, and that CASA volunteer can not only visit the youth in the facilities, but when they return home, we're there as well. So sometimes we've had kids in past cases with DYRS that have had their CASA for 5 years. And so we just want to keep expanding that because these volunteers work with one youth. And that's something that throughout their matriculation in the system, they don't get.
Let me ask you this. About how many youth do CASA service in a year? And how do you break down those years or cohorts?
So we service almost 200 kids a year. So we train our volunteers probably in a group of 20 every month, bringing them in, and then we match them to a youth. And they go through 3 hours.
And I heard you say something about you have 77% of the youth who are graduating.
Yes.
And with an averaging 2.6 GPA.
Yes, that's the overall GPA.
So, and so this is the 200 kids, or is it separate? I don't know if all your 200 kids actually part of DYRS, or they come from other sources. I don't know where all your kids come from.
So all of our kids are coming through DC courts, so not all of them are DYRS. Mm-hmm.
And I guess for me, because these are amazing numbers, like I mean overall in DC, right? And I don't know, I haven't been seeing your organization up front, but the issue, I guess, from me seeing what happens in DYRS is that they're transient, right? So I'm not sure how you all are measuring success, because youth may be 6 months, 4 months, or they might be in 9th grade, so you don't really know if they're graduating, you know. So I'm asking, I guess, first of all, how do you measure them while they're there, and how do you track them to ensure that they are completing high school?
Awesome. So the good thing about CASA is that we're appointed to the case until the case closes. So a lot of times our kids are averaging with us for a year or more. So as long as they're in the cohort, yes. So at the minimum, we should be with the kid for a year, but some cases are open for multiple years. So we've had kids we've seen all the way through high school. And so our tool that we measure is through our youth success survey that we use in a database, and we do that every quarter. And we really are trying to strengthen on our juvenile justice side some aftercare for the youth, but it's a little complicated because CASA is a party on the case, which makes us, we have the mentorship, but because we're a party on the case, our role kind of ends once that case is closed. So we're working on some measures to continue to track and be there for the youth, but most youth still are engaged with their CASA even after that, but just not in that capacity.
Okay. And so with that, what do you all do differently that you feel like is a strong skill set for you guys to help make this a success? Because, you know, I interact with schools, middle schools more than most, and it's pandemonium. I can go to one school and another school, and just the culture of schools interacting with our young people is something I've never seen before.
Yes. I think what I know makes us different is that we're a party on the case. So a lot of those records that others can't get, like the transcript, IEP, all of that we can do. And we also are building a tutoring support for our youth. And the CASAs can see the youth one-on-one and kind of help with those tedious things such as homework and following up. I mean, it's a lot. Even for anybody to deal with so many moving factors at the school, a lot of times kids don't even know that they have accommodations on their IEP. So you have that one-on-one mentor that can not only attend those meetings, but we are at their court hearings. So when the judge is looking at what to do with a case, we have that outside perspective saying, hey, look, he's not attending school because the home is dysfunctional, or he didn't know he had accommodations. So that's what makes us different. I like to say we're mentors with a lot of power because we're in those hearings and we're directly advocating for their best interests.
So I guess I'm also curious, thank you for that, just the tracking mechanisms, because I'm assuming that all your youth are not in the 12th grade, right? And you said that you stay with them for a year. So how you track them to ensure success? They're not seniors and they complete their enrollment with you within a year. How do you track that?
Through their report cards, through their monthly grades and things like that, and also meeting with the teachers. So we keep those numbers in mind in terms of trying to figure out what their trajectory is.
So your volunteers stay with them even beyond their tenure with you? How does that work?
Well, they can't stay with them in a CASA capacity because we're appointed by DC Superior Court. But of course, you know, if you are a kid who really had a good relationship with your CASA, you know, they don't just drop off the face of the earth, but they're there in a non-capacity, if you will. Again, we really want to build some sort of programming that we can stay on after the case is closed in a CASA capacity to advocate for them.
Gotcha. I guess I was just asking that, just trying to figure out the tracking mechanism to ensure that they get from one place to another. All right. Thank you. I'm gonna move on to Ms. Moore.
Yes, sir.
I'll come back to Ms. Root. Ms. Moore, what types of training has been provided?
We do trainings on youth engagement. We do trainings on self-care and just self-awareness so that, you know how to present yourself to work every day before you go out and deal with these families and these youth. A lot on like program evaluation, how to really do your budget. Anything involving finances, anything involving youth and family programming, engagement, lesson planning, things like that.
Got it. And how many, so you all have, I guess, the subcontractors that involve and interact with the youth, correct?
When you say subcontractors, are you meaning the grantees? Because I do have subcontractors as well. You mean the providers over the program?
Yes, grantee. Yes. So the reason why I'm asking, because I heard Ms. Van talk about her son desires to do a t-shirt company, And I'm trying to figure out how do you all utilize you all's a network of people to help people like Miss Van with their children once they reintegrate into the community.
So we actually do have a graphic design program, which is called Community Set, and they operate at the achievement centers. And while she's there with Ms. Williams now, Ms. Williams could probably give her a lot of the information for Community Set. But if not, if she can reach out to me or have somebody get me her contact information, I can give her that. But they're at the achievement centers twice a week. And so their main focus is, you know, graphic design, how to put your logo and how to brand and how to market on a shopping bag or Christmas wrapping paper or t-shirt, masks. They produce masks and we were virtual for the community, things like that. So we definitely have those types of programs under the coalition.
Got you. And how do you all coordinate that with DYRS?
So DYRS will put out requests for proposals for different types of programs that they want, be it credible messenger programs or the Achievement Center programs. And after a review is done, they give PLC what those programs are and what those funding allocations are, and then we contract with those grantees.
Got it. Got it. So I guess I'm thinking about like training. I heard Ms. Funk talk about just the issue that youth face on a daily basis, like sex trafficking or involved with pimps and just I guess just so many nuances that our youth and young adults are experiencing in this day and time with additional social media. I guess for me, I'm thinking about as you all manage service providers, the different levels of training that you provide to help them stay up or stay abreast of what's happening through social media and other nuances influence their work.
Yes, so we have a number of trainings on social media, not only branding for the programs themselves. I heard a young lady speak on, you know, the providers need to increase contact with kids and increase engagement with kids. But it's up to her to keep herself coming back to these types of programs. So yes, we do have a number of facilitators that actually work directly with kids, but they come in and we talk about the LGBTQI community. We talk about how to engage that population. We have talked about sex trafficking. This month we will be talking about, because it's domestic violence amongst, you know, youth month, we'll be talking about things like that. So we try to keep up to speed with everything, as well as courses that DYRS kind of mandates that they get, which are things around incident reporting and things like that. We do also survey the coalition as well as the youth. And I spoke to that in my testimony. So when we give these community events, we always submit a survey and we ask the community, you know, where are we missing the mark? The kids can go to their program providers every single class and submit a survey so that we know that providers are doing what they're supposed to be doing. The staff themselves tell us all the time what trainings they need, and we incorporate that into our training schedule. If it's not something that is probably good for the entire coalition, then we'll pull out certain people. Hey, we're having a training on this day for this, sign up, and we try to meet the mark as best we can.
All right, thank you so much. I'm gonna move to Ms. Froome.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yes.
I can hear you,
Okay, I'm back.
but I can't. Check 1, 2. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay, great. So my devices are out of whack, out of all days, right? But God is good. I want to thank you for the work that you're committed to do. I think that's for me. I've interacted with a number of young folks who had a lot of great things to say about your organization, and what you do is not easy. You're gonna get mixed reviews depending on who you talk to doing that type of work. I want to know. I heard you say in your testimony that you worked with DYRS 4 years ago, and then I think I heard you say you're working with them now. So, are you currently contracted to DYRS currently?
No, we work in silos. So it's just the only way we work together. What would we work together? It's just contacting them to set up, my staff may contact them to set up the times for the youth to call in and one-on-ones, but no, we've never had a contract or a grant.
What about with Progressive Life Services?
No.
Okay,
I've
now
tried years though. Over the years, I've met and tried with all the new directors.
I thought I heard you also say that you've been working for free.
No, so on their end, right, they referred free to us, this is correct. But then I went to, my funding comes from foster care, and then it also comes from Hope Court through OVSJG. So then if you are in between, you are correct. They may be referred by their lawyers.
Check
They can
1, 2.
use
Can you hear me?
Oh, I can now.
Okay, I couldn't hear you.
Uh-oh.
Okay, I couldn't hear you.
Okay, I can repeat.
Check 1, 2. Please.
So yeah, no, they paid us to train 3 years ago. Referrals definitely were free. They don't really refer to us. It's like third referrals. So lawyers may refer to us, and our youth are at the DRS. Foster care may refer, so I get paid through them because the youth are there, but not directly by DRS unless it was a training.
I understand a little better now. How would you recommend identifying programs that serve youth and young adults involved in sex trafficking?
Well, I already know all the programs because our youth are in those programs as well, or may refer other youth that may be in a program. The issue is our youth usually may not tell them, right? They may not tell the social worker directly, oh, we work with Courtney's House too, right? Because it's for sex trafficking. And this is what they tell me. Their exact words are, I want them all in my business. And you're like, what? We could work together, which I think we could work together and kind of nix that all in your business, but they don't see us as a joint work together partnership, right?
Who, the youth or DRS?
I think both.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, I guess for me, because we all have the same end goal in mind to help youth transition to a healthy lifestyle. And one of the things that concerns me was that you said in your testimony that 100% of the youth who have been involved that we've seen have ended up in DC jail or some federal penitentiary.
Yeah.
And I just want to know, like, where we are as a city, where we dropping the ball as far as wraparound service and engagement and resources to help people live healthier lifestyles.
I mean, I think and I'll use one of the youth that was in DRS as an example, because I visited him at DC jail. And I really think we all lost him. He was, committed to Hope Court. He was committed to care. He was in Hope Court and then kind of committed. And I think the issue is I'm the only one, right? We knew about the trafficking. We brought a lot of concerns about his family, what was going on. But that side, maybe DRS and others, is like, oh, we visited the parent. Oh, we don't think it's this. It's not that. He didn't say it was this. So I think there was a lot of that in his case. And then when that case closed, then what happened was, right, the bad side of that was that everything came out. We realized that, yes, it was the mother. There was robberies. He was still involved, right? So there was a point to help him. They tried to give him lots of services to do DRS. How he doing services and he's still in trauma and living with a trafficker that's in Trinidad who's Caucasian that everybody know, and DRS know the address like I know the address, like the police knew the address. But they're like, he's not saying anything. So I think we all failed them, to be honest.
I got it. And so we're going to try to push DYRS and our other partners, because it's a community effort to help save. And, I think that just my experience with government hides transparency for not wanting to look bad or fear of a lawsuit, the many reasons. And if you don't acknowledge the problem, it's hard to really come up with a real solution. And we're trying to break through some of those barriers, saying it's okay, because the reality is you can't control anyone's behavior in no institutes, as we heard from a young lady earlier today. But what we can do is help with what the information we have, and we have to create a safe space where people feel comfortable enough and opening up and helping them to get to where they need to be. Because other than that, we just playing catch up, and what we see the end result is not what any of us would like to see happen, including the youth and young adult.
And my last thing to say about that is the issue is not only sexual abuse among boys and men. And I think that's the issue. All of our boys, that boy defines as straight. So I think DRS not really knowing how to deal with that, or not even really knowing the sexual abuse among men, we already know this, not dealing with the issue leads to more violent crimes. And that's what we're saying. With our boys, it's not really being addressed. It can't just be us. And so we see that manifest in very violent crimes that end them in jail or prison.
Yeah, and I want to look at how DRS is spending their money as it relates to programs. We have a huge population of LGBTQ youth in the city. In fact, we focus on that in a ward. We just started a LGBTQ Ward 8 council to hear more and see more, figure out ways we can help from a ward perspective to address these issues or concerns, or make them feel included into the community conversation. That way that we can catch them or support them in whatever lifestyle they're living, to help them, not get into the system or have recipients in and out of DRS or the other penal system. So I want to thank you for your work. The work continues. We want to push our government partners to be more supportive of community-based organizations, because we know that most of the times you all got the information before the government and intimately know what's going on before the government. I guess something's going on my internet again. It's saying it's not. So I look forward to hearing from you and working with you in the future. Thank you. And to all, know we're running out of time for the panelists, and so I'm gonna try to speed through this as quickly as I can so we can have time for the government witnesses. I see we've also been joined by my Ward 4 colleague, Janice Lewis George. I'm going to give her a moment to speak whenever she's ready. The next panelists are Philip Harrington, Sam Bonar, Crystal Gray, Stephen Hill, Juliet Rose, Cheryl McDaniel Thomas, and Jane Feldness. If you guys can let me know, everyone who can be elevated to the panel is elevated, so I can know when to start. Still looking for panelists. If you are a panelist, if your name has been called, hit the raise hand button so my staff can know who you are, so we can elevate you to the panel, please. Okay. Last name Phil Master. Okay. I think I was hitting backspace and took some of the letters off. I apologize for that. Okay, so we're gonna start off with Philip Harrington, Sam Bonar, Stephen Hill. If you're in that order, you can start in that order. I can't see the whole entire screen, so I'm limited. Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hearing none. Okay. Crystal Gray.
I'm here.
Okay. Got one. You can start.
All right. Good morning. Good morning, Councilmember White and members of the Committee on Recreation, Libraries, and Youth Affairs. Thank you for having me today at this hearing. Again, my name is Crystal Gray, and I'm a proud parent of Amani Walker, who attends DuPont Park Events at School. I also serve with Parents Amplifying Voices in Education, PAVE, as a citywide board member. Again, Councilmember First, thank you for your commitment of 22 million out of school time programs in the fiscal year 2022 budget. Also, Committee Chair White, thank you for your open dialogue with paid parent leaders on OST, out of school time and school-based mental health investments during our annual DC Parents Voice and Choice Week meeting in January. It was wonderful speaking with you. I hope that we will see an even greater investment in our kids, families, and communities for the 23 budget. Out of school time is in direct correlation with DYRS because it gives our youth some constructive activities to do in their spare time. I personally did not have to utilize DYRS or Sasha Brew services or homeless services because my mentors from my after school time activities were able to step up and assist me with my homelessness, my past traumas, and even my college prep. Those out of school programs saved my life. I hear how strong these youth are here at this hearing. It's so important to have additional support for those whose parents are not able to provide support. Fortunately, my daughter Amani has been participating in DPR programs for the last 3 years, which means the last half of her life since she's 6. So we travel across town so she could swim, cheer, and do DPR activities, and also Little Discovery summer camps at DPR. We have so many great memories of celebrating families and birthdays and graduations at DPR sites. Access to safe sites. Well-resourced recreational spaces is important in general, but DPR sites holds the key to unlock this potential. I'm testifying today because it needs to be easier for people who are not knowledgeable about the process to access DPR program for out of school time. Even thinking about the registration process brings up feelings of panic and anxiety for me sometimes. It's countless parents across the district that have to prepare to sign up for open program slots, like we preparing for Hunger Games. We shouldn't have to sit at a computer just the right moment and hope that we have a small chance of winning when competing with thousands of other parents for limited resources. DPR services are so resourceful and helpful, but if you're not a parent in the know, then you just won't know. And that's not fair at all. I often must coordinate information sharing with parents in my community about DPR sites and registration. I do independent research on program availability and key registration dates to send information out to residents in Ward 8, such as Atlantic Gardens, Southern Hills, and any other community outreach that reaches out to me. Many residents aren't aware of sites like 24dc.gov and would likely miss out with the extra outreach. I don't work for DPR, but why is it that I feel like if I don't do these things like share these dates of financial aid, deadline for enrollment camps, specialties in our communities in Ward 8, that these things just might not get done within our community? To address these and other issues, which are barriers to accessing out of school programs, I'm asking that you create a strategic plan with families, educators, OST providers, and community partners to ensure access to in-demand programs for all kids. This plan must begin with innovative and consistent engagement with families to determine the types of programs that we want in our wards and in our communities. This step is especially important because the quality of DPR sites and program offerings in Ward 8 just doesn't compare to the sites across the district. We do travel to Navy Yard and Turkey Thicket for most of my daughter's programming. I know that my family isn't alone in this, and I hope that as you prioritize this strategic plan and host community info sessions to better understand how we want to see our program offerings improve so that more Ward 8 families can feel good about utilizing DPR sites closer to home. Thank you again for allowing me to testify and share what I would like to see for our kids in our district. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crystal, and your commitment to our youth and young adults in DC and education. We will hear from Ms. Sherry McDaniel Thomas.
Let's see. Hello.
Yep. Hello.
All right, good. Good afternoon, Councilmember White and members of the Committee on Recreation, Libraries, and Youth Affairs. My name is Sherry McDaniel Thomas, and I'm a native Washingtonian, presently living in Ward 4, and I'm the proud grandmother of a dynamic young autistic gentleman who attends Washington Global Public Charter School in Ward 6. I also serve with Parents Amplifying Voices in Education, PAVE, and I'm on the Parent Leaders in Education Board. I'm testifying today because I want to do all I can do to make sure every child in the city, regardless of family income levels or where they live, has access to high quality OST programs that support their individual needs and interests. Students who participate in after-school programs exhibit a significant improvement in their feelings, attitudes, and indicators of behavioral adjustment. Increasing opportunities for high-quality OST programs for children can improve outcomes for our youth by helping improve their academic success, supporting the development of non-cognitive skills, and by providing access to a safe place and supportive social environment. Let me not miss the opportunity to thank you for the funds provided to out-of-school time programs in the fiscal 2022 budget. This includes $17 million in local reoccurring dollars, plus $5 million in federal American Rescue Plan funds for a total amount of $22 million. Those are vitally important investments. So, what actions are needed now by district leaders? Well, at this moment, right now, district leaders should increase funding for out-of-school programming to help close a gap of almost $8 million in local and reoccurring funding. Essential going forward is also the development of a strategic plan formulated by families, educators, OST providers, and community partners to ensure access to in-demand programs for all children. And that was just mentioned by Crystal earlier. This strategic plan should include defining what a high-quality OST program looks like and matrix for evaluation of the services provided. It should provide an updated needs assessment to identify existing programs and the gaps in needs. And by looking at both location and program types. It should establish innovative and consistent engagement with families to determine the types of programs they want and need in their wards and communities. And working with the schools to ensure that they have resources such as staff capacity, trained and qualified staff to engage with our children, all of our children, to address their various needs and appropriate safe spaces. This is important to me because a child's exposure to various mental and physical activities contributes directly to their social and emotional growth. This is increasingly true for our children with special needs. In a safe, nurturing environment, all of our children can learn to communicate with a group, work as a team, develop self-confidence, and take pride in completing an individual task, improve their physical health, and gain respect for those who provide their services. My grandson, Donovan, who is celebrating his 14th birthday today, I'll throw that in, is an 8th grader. And prior to the pandemic, participated in in-person visual arts after-school programs that he enjoyed. Although last year, there were other virtual programs offered, but after a long day of distance learning and sitting on the screen, he wasn't too apt to stay engaged. This year, we've had so many challenges with just school transportation, and that's a whole nother meeting, that we've decided not to participate in OST programs at all and just focus our energy on simply getting him safely to and from the school building. As we get closer to the summertime and we consider the quality, variety, and availability of programs at DPR centers, the fact that we need the Committee on Recreation, Libraries, and Youth Affairs to prioritize OST strategic planning is even more clear. Recently, when listening to the news, I know many of us have noted the times when crimes are being committed by our minors. Now more than ever, the opportunity to have access to high quality out-of-school time programs is desperately and urgently needed to prevent some of our kids from even getting involved with the Department of Youth Rehabilitation Services in the first place. Our children need to be able to attend programs geared towards their needs and interests. For starters, our libraries can expand programming for middle and high school students, especially those with special needs and IEPs. DPR centers should also expand staff to engage and cultivate safer spaces along with more quality programming for children and their families. I am certain that someone on this committee experienced and gained the benefits that come along with participation in quality out-of-school time programs. Our schools and communities are filled with untapped potential of students in need of high-quality OST programs. I hope the district will create a strategic plan developed by families, educators, and OST providers, as well as community partners, and serve to access the in-demand programs for all students and support this strategic plan of at least $25 million in local recurring funds for OST programs, and allocate based on performance-based evaluations to ensure quality services while making funding decisions transparent. I want to thank you for allowing me to testify today and share what I want to see for all of the children in the district. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Jane.
Hi, good afternoon, Chairman White, members of the Committee on Recreation, Libraries, and Youth Affairs, and committee staff. My name is Jane Feldmesser, and I'm the policy analyst at PAVE. PAVE parent leaders have been steadfastly advocating.
Feldmesser.
Oh, are you not hearing me?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. PAVE parent leaders have been steadfastly advocating for OST programs since 2018. Their collective vision is simple but powerful. Every family has access to a high-quality OST program for their children that supports their individual needs, where they can explore their passions and enrich their learning, regardless of income level or where they live. However, this is not our current reality. The pandemic and the exacerbation of existing racial disparities has continued to cause significant trauma to our children. Black, brown, and low-income residents are bearing the brunt on all fronts, as all data and research points to a K-shaped recovery. They've witnessed their family's financial and housing instability, experienced loss and grief, all while having dealt with these big emotions away from peers, their schools, and their out-of-school time programs. Our students' traumatizing experiences over the past 2 years have culminated into acute mental health crises, increased crime, and an increased need for academic support. Regular participation in high-quality out-of-school time programs has been proven time and time again to support students' academic growth and engagement in learning, boosting students' well-being, and setting students up to thrive post-high school. And importantly, OST programs give kids a safe and enriching place to go when their parents are at work or managing their households. So thank you to the mayor and the DC Council for the critical investments in out-of-school time programs and last year's budget with the use of $17 million in local recurring funds and $5 million in federal ARP funds. Despite this progress, we have to be honest about our shortcomings. In many conversations with parents across the district, parents have reported significant barriers to participation, including cost, transportation, finding programs that interest their children, accessing adequate information, and many more. These barriers to OST programs are outsized when disaggregated by race and income. In PAVE's 2021 Back to School survey, roughly 3 in 5 white students participate in OST programs compared to only 2 in 5 Black and African American and Hispanic and Latinx students. Participation also varies inversely with income, meaning those from low-income families are less likely than those in higher income families to participate at all. The cost of the programs was a particular barrier for Hispanic and Latinx families, and currently undocumented students are not eligible for financial aid or program vouchers. There are clear areas for improvement, but we can do this. PAVE parent leaders have come together in countless meetings to discuss what policy solutions are foundational to lasting systemic change around out-of-school time programs and would address the biggest gaps and needs for our students and families. Today, I want to amplify their top priorities and also what Crystal and Sherry have already talked about. 1, increased funding for out-of-school time programs. This includes providing at least $25 million in recurring and local funding for OST programs. So that way, every year it's not a fight for OST programs, but it's stable and based in local funding. 2, create a strategic plan with families, educators, OST providers, and community partners to ensure access to in-demand programs for all kids. Like Crystal and Cher were saying, we need an updated needs assessment to identify existing program gaps and needs, which includes looking at both location and program type, which also should include DPR programs. This upcoming budget and oversight season is an opportunity to show our values, that DC truly cares takes care of its people, especially when times get hard, and one that will courageously act to right the wrongs of historic injustice and step up with bold, innovative action to meet this unprecedented moment, with investments in our future and in our children. This work is only possible with leaders on the council who also believe in the power and promise of community voice. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify today, and I hope that we can count on your leadership.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. I think most of the conversation that involves youth was not really specific to DYRS, and so I'm gonna ask you, you guys on the panel, if you all can jump back on. I guess is mostly, I mean, how I can interconnect it is through the Office of Out of School Time, and I guess my thoughts is that if we are fully committed to providing alternatives after school, to programming, to mentoring, to resources, then our youth won't transition into being involved in our juvenile justice system or adult justice system. Or and so I wanted to ask you, I wanted to ask Ms. Gray about the strategic plan. Is Ms. Gray still here? I know she was getting her head done. There she go. All right, I wanted to ask you. You don't have to come on camera if you don't want to. You can just use your mic.
What was the direct question?
What do you think need to be prioritized in the strategic plan? If you can speak a little bit more on that.
So one priority that I think needs to be prioritized is getting that information out there, what's available to the youth, especially our older youth from the ages of 13 to 18 or 13 to 19, like what they can do after school and how they might get paid for it, might be able to receive a stipend. And if no stipend, they could receive the hours, the community service hours that's necessary. I know when I was younger, you know, they didn't have I didn't know about this, but my coaches from volleyball and basketball at Spingarn, they actually was finding me services. So I didn't have any community organizers. I didn't have mentorships. You literally need people to walk these students and these kids through the process of how to do something with their time.
I got it. Anybody want to add to that?
I think not only walking the students through, but informing the parents as well. And that needs to be done prior to the school year beginning. And I don't know, I think the websites, and Crystal mentioned this earlier, she kind of feels like she's a volunteer for DPR. There's some very basic information that should be available to all parents in the city. And there is a level of stress when you're trying to find appropriate and meaningful activities for your kids to be engaged in. So I think across the board, that strategic plan really needs the inputs of family and kids. There's no sense in adults developing programs that kids aren't going to be interested in and then putting money into them and they don't want to participate. So they're just as important to that plan as well.
Totally agree with that.
Yeah, I just want to add on top of what Crystal and Chair are already saying is that we know that students really only benefit from OC programs if they're high quality. And DC right now doesn't have metrics to measure what high quality actually looks like and also how to evaluate existing programs to make sure that all the programs that students are involved in are actually benefiting them in all the ways that they can and should be.
Thank you. I want to thank you all for your commitment to our young people through PAVE and other vehicles. I want to thank you all. We're going to move on with our government witnesses. Thank you. And we can elevate our government witness to the panel. Give about a minute and a half to get everything set up. And we're going to jump back on. Director Kearns, while we're transitioning to government witnesses, do you have anyone else from your office that will be testifying or may have to add value to the conversation today? If so, we ask they come on screen so we can sweat them in as well.
I'm not sure that anybody else will necessarily be talking, but Adam Algeburi, the Chief of Staff, is here as well.
All right, well, we gotta swear him in as well. Hey, Adam, what's going on?
How you doing, council member? Nice to see you.
All right. All right. Are you ready, Director?
I am.
All right. It is the practice of this office or this committee to swear in or affirm. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury the testimony that you are about to give to the Committee on Recreation, Libraries, and Youth Affairs is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Is my computer messing up?
A little bit, yes. You're going in and out for me. I don't know if that's true for Adam as well.
Okay. Nah, it just sent me a note, but I got 3 phones. But if you can hear me, clap once. No, you don't have to clap. Your opening statement. And I see we've also been joined by Councilman Brooke Pinto. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, Director, you can start off with your opening statement and we'll get started.
Thank you so much. Before I do my opening statement, is it okay if I could just acknowledge some of the witnesses that were here? Is that all right? Okay. So I just wanted to first off just thank the young people in particular who joined and talked about their experiences at DYRS. I really appreciate your time with us and hope that I get to meet each of you individually, especially CF, because one of the things that I've been doing is meeting with all young people at the end of their commitments, and somehow CF, your commitment ended and I haven't had my meeting with you. So hopefully we can meet soon. Also wanted to acknowledge the parent who joined us both when praising our Credible Messenger team, as well as, and the young people who were with us, and specifically named a bunch of staff. And so really appreciate your citing the supports that you've gotten from our staff. And then also there were a couple of witnesses who it sounds like were due for meetings with them. So want to just assure we had CASA DC, and Courtney's House in particular, that it sounds like we should have a meeting to talk about potential partnerships. And then also lastly, just wanted to appreciate the advocacy around the out of school time activity. That's certainly something that's core to DYRS's work, to make sure that our young people have lots of opportunities to be engaged in activities out of school time. So just wanted to acknowledge that first. So good afternoon, Chairperson White, members and staff of the Committee on Recreation, Libraries, and Youth Affairs. My name is Hillary Cairns, and I'm the Director of the Department of Youth Rehabilitation Services, otherwise known as DYRS. And I'm joined here today by some of my senior staff who may assist during the hearing. Wanted to thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today in my first performance oversight hearing as Director of DYRS. I am humbled that Mayor Bowser entrusted me with the great responsibility of leading DYRS, and I'm thankful for the guidance and support that Mayor Bowser, Deputy Mayor Geldhart, and colleagues around the district have provided during this period of transition for me. I would also like to thank the DYRS community for welcoming me to the agency so warmly. I have visited with many of our stakeholders, including youth, staff, community partners, and others over the last 7 months. And I'm encouraged by the work we are doing together to provide our city's young people with the best chance to succeed both during and after their time with DYRS. As I explained during my confirmation hearing in November, I have learned throughout my career that in order to achieve ambitious goals, I must directly engage in the day-to-day operations of the agency and listen to a broad base of stakeholders. In my short time at the agency, I have met with nearly all of the agency's employees, visited with many of the youth in our care, listened to the concerns of advocates and service providers, and I have been closely examining how we work together to meet the needs of our young people and their families. While we've had significant challenges over the last fiscal year, We've done a commendable job of ensuring that the necessary programs and services remain available to youth and families connected to DYRS. I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the impacts of COVID-19 as a significant challenge the agency was forced to persevere through the past 2 years. DYRS experienced strains on staffing and disruptions in programming and service delivery due to positive COVID tests and are having to quarantine due to close contact. To ensure youth and staff remain safe, we altered our work plans and routines to incorporate COVID vaccinations and testing for all employees and residents, PPE distribution and usage, social distancing, and virtual interaction. These operational changes significantly altered work for our frontline staff who are responsible for the daily implementation of programs and services in our facilities and in the community, and for our administrative staff who must plan, monitor, and regularly report on our resource utilization. But I'm pleased to say that our work never halted. Our staff continued to adapt and make the necessary adjustments to ensure that our services remain available and our youth remain safe in our care. While we persevered and continued to overcome the operational challenges associated with COVID-19, we must also recognize the personal impacts of COVID on our workforce. Sadly, many of us have lost friends, family, and members of our community to coronavirus, and the circumstances surrounding the pandemic have caused lasting trauma and even led some to reevaluate their career choices and seek other employment opportunities. DYRS has not been immune to these challenges, and we must figure out how to better care for one another so that we maintain the work environment we all desire and ensure that each of us is capable of providing the very best care and support for our youth. Violent crime and gun violence in particular continues to be a challenge in our community. While we are pleased that youth committed to DYRS have largely remained safe and engaged in DYRS programming, we have also seen an uptick in juvenile crime across the region. Simply put, this is not acceptable, and we must all do more to curb the violence in our community. To this end, we at DYRS have been working to expand programming and services to more young people, whether they are committed to DYRS or not. It is vital that we know where our young people are, who they're with, and keep them positively engaged so that they are neither victims nor causes of violence. This is why our collaboration with sister agencies and other community partners is so important, so we can effectively gather and share available information helpful to keeping our young people out of harm's way. Some of the agency's collaborative efforts include partnering with other district agencies, including the Child and Family Services Agency to provide credible messenger services to 29 CFSA involved youth, working with Building Blocks DC to issue solicitations for micro grants and larger grants to DC organizations to provide services to reduce gun violence in the district, and working with the ONE's office to provide credible messenger support for returning citizens in their Pathways program. Over the past year, our youth, staff, and community partners demonstrated their resilience by showing up every day, despite the challenges we faced, and helping DYRS achieve some notable accomplishments as we pursued our larger goals. Some of the agency's FY21 accomplishments include helping high-risk DYRS youth successfully complete the Your Violence Intervention Program, training our clinical staff in grief and trauma and grief component therapy for adolescents, and implementing group sessions with youth in the facilities, configuring virtual courtrooms at the Youth Services Center and New Beginnings so youth could attend their DC Superior Court hearings remotely, introducing our new school at the Youth Services Center, the Maya Angelou Academy, offering college courses through the University of District of Columbia to youth in our secure facilities, and fully resuming in-person programming, including visitation, education, and workforce development in our secure facilities and in the community. As we move forward and push past this pandemic, I have challenged my team to redouble our efforts to do the very best we can for our young people. And I have asked that we do so with a sense of urgency. Working with a sense of urgency means we focus on being intentional and acting with deliberate care regarding each and everything we do. It does not mean that we work frantically or busy ourselves for the sake of keeping busy. It means that we recognize our interconnectedness, pay close attention to detail, support one another, and work meticulously toward achieving our goals. While improving programming and service delivery will always be top priorities, we get there through increased collaboration and working urgently together. Ultimately, we know that positive youth outcomes result from meaningful relationships with caring adults, as well as appropriate individually tailored treatment and services. And although our young people have to take ownership over their own decision-making to ensure they are no longer involved in the justice system after their commitment expires, we are responsible for putting them in a position to succeed. That is our charge. Helping young people emerge from our care with new behaviors and skills, as well as resiliency and hope for their futures, demands that we look inward and hold ourselves accountable for great work. I'm keenly aware that we have been working amidst a public health crisis over the last 2 years, and it's easy, if not logical, to come to a point where the focus becomes just making it through. But this doesn't work for us. Our young people's lives depend on us. We cannot lose sight of our larger goals to help each youth we serve avoid further involvement in the justice system and leave our care better off educationally, behaviorally, mentally, and emotionally than when they came to us. We must constantly remind ourselves of our charge, the gravity of our work, and the sense of urgency that our work requires. It is up to us to help change the trajectory of our young people's lives. In closing, I would like to express to all the DYRS staff my sincere appreciation for your continued dedication to improving outcomes for our youth. As we continue our journey to improve the system together, please be reminded of the sense of urgency our work demands. I would also like to thank Mayor Bowser and Deputy Mayor Geldhart for their invaluable leadership, which is critical to the agency's success and continuous improvement. I look forward to seeing what we, in partnership with our critical allies in the council and our sister agencies, can achieve in support of our young people's pursuit of success. And thank you, Chairperson White, for your leadership and for this opportunity to address the committee. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Director. So I will pivot to Councilmember Brooke Pinto for opening remarks or questions.
All right. Thank you very much, Chairman White, and thank you, Director Kearns, for your leadership and your testimony today. I am glad to join you all for this very important hearing on the Department of Youth Rehabilitation Services, and I'm very concerned that almost 100% of children receiving support from DYRS are Black or Latino, which makes it very clear that we are failing our children and children of color in our city. And while I hope that services that our kids receive from DYRS address their needs and keep them out of dangerous situations in the future, we know we have to do a better job of reaching children before they commit crimes. So today I'm looking forward to learning more about how we can reduce recidivism rates and provide additional supports to our kids when they return to their communities. So first, Director, I want to dive in a little bit more to how it's determined when a young person should be sent to Youth Services Center or to New Beginnings Youth Development Center and how those decisions are made.
Sure. So the Youth Services Center, which is our detention facility, is not solely for DYRS involved young people. What Youth Services Center is where young people go by through court social services. So it could be prior to their initial hearing, which is typically happens the next day. So the court social services, along with collaboration with the Office of the Attorney General, would determine whether or not a young person would be detained. So we have no input into whether or not a young person stays with us due to court social services in court. So that's one sort of group of people that's at the Youth Services Center. We also have Title 16 youth. So those are young people who were charged as adults. We have 20 Title 16 youth who are at the Youth Services Center. The other pieces of the Youth Services Center include young people who are ordered detained by the court. So they are also, they're longer, they stay at Youth Services Center longer than just through their initial hearing, but even after that hearing. And that's determined by court order as well. The young people who are DYRS committed young people who are there would be pending placement somewhere else. So either pending placement to a group home, pending placement to a residential treatment center, whether that be New Beginnings or a different one. And then also sometimes going to placement at a psychiatric residential treatment facility. So youth service center, I just want to be clear, it encompasses a lot of different young people. New Beginnings is our residential treatment center. It's a 60-bed facility. We currently have 25 committed youth who are at YSC, 22 boys and 3 girls. I'm sorry, who are at New Beginnings, not YSC. And the process for determining where a young person goes, first and foremost, our mission states very clearly that we are to look for the most home-like environment for young people that's consistent with public safety. So our go-to is not incarceration, and New Beginnings is incarceration. It's our longer-term incarceration program. So in order for a young person to be placed at New Beginnings, we would have had to have found through our assessments, through working with getting feedback from providers, looking at their offense, looking at their juvenile justice history, really determined this is a young person that we cannot have in the community right now. The goal is always to complete the program at New Beginnings so that they can be returned to the community, whether that be home preferably, but potentially to a group home or to a foster care setting.
Okay, and why do some young people at YRC receive services from DYRS, but not everybody?
You said at YSC, everybody who's at you said YSC?
Yes.
Everyone who's at YSC receives services. We manage the facility. So, and it doesn't matter why they're there. They receive schooling, they receive behavioral health services. We don't distinguish based on kind of who has ultimate oversight over them, what services are available.
Got it. Okay. Okay. How can a young person report abuse if they experience it while they're at Youth Services Center or New Beginnings or another residential facility?
Yeah, there are several different ways of reporting that. We have in each of the housing units, there's like a box that they can write a note and put it in a box that's a locked box. They can tell their attorneys can do a report for them. They can tell a staff person who can do reports. There are a bunch of different mechanisms. They can make a phone call. We have a line that they can make a phone call to. So there are a bunch of different ways.
Okay. And how many young people are currently at New Beginnings?
New Beginnings, we have 25 youth.
Okay. And over the course of the last year, how have the rehabilitation services been received by the young people who you've been serving? Do you have data on any recidivism rates or young people who have been returned to their homes or another home?
Are you talking, just to be clear, talking specifically about young people who've gone through the New Beginnings program and returned to the community, or overall?
Specifically through New Beginnings.
Okay. But
I'm curious on how how each of the programs compare to one another. So if you have data for all of them, that would be helpful.
Yeah, well, so focusing on New Beginnings, offhand, I don't want to misstate, some very specific data. So I'm happy to follow up to give you specific information around rearrests and things like that. But a lot of the planning while a young person is at New Beginnings is about what's going to happen when they return to the community. So they move through a 6-level system while they're at New Beginnings, and there are certain markers to achieve to the next level. And again, it's about preparing a young person to return to the community safely. And then when they return to the community, we're same team. So some of the same team members that are working with them in New Beginnings are continuing to be working with them in the community. So their credible messenger, their care coordinator, the education team, the behavioral health services, to make sure that those services are able to continue once they return to the community. And some youth go directly home, some go to a group home or to a foster care setting. But it's a core responsibility for us to have the continuation of services when they return to the community.
Okay. And what does some of those services look like when our young people have returned to the community? Like how how are determinations made for what level of continued intervention or supervision or collaboration is needed? And then what do some of those programs look like?
Yeah, so really want to emphasize the importance of individualized services. So it's not that every young person who comes to us gets X service. They all have equal opportunity for all the services that we have or that we partner for, but we want to individually tailor the services to meet a young person's need. So for some young people, that looks like a return to the community. It looks like intensive behavioral health services, intensive intensive monitoring, whereas for others, the services may be different, may be really focused on a workforce program for them. We talked about out of school time activities, but we have our Achievement Center, which has numerous programs available in our workforce development program. For our young people, school is the priority, both within the facility and then once they leave, school achievement, whether that be a high school diploma, GED, college education, or workforce for those who have completed their education. So it really, I can't give you a cut and dry, this is whatever it looks like for each young person, but know that there are a lot of services that are available, and that's really core to our work with them.
Okay, well, thank you. And one of the things that we've been trying to focus on more in the past year is additional investments in mental health supports for our young people, out of school time, and supervision, exposure to the arts and sports and other academics, because we believe it's good for young people. And we also believe that it's important to invest in our young people so that instances of crime do not happen. But as the expert who is engaging daily with our young people who have committed crimes, what are you finding to be some of the primary sources or motivations that have led our youngest residents to committing these crimes?
I thought you were going to ask about services, but you shifted at the end. You wanted to ask about the reasons for the underlying reasons for like the root causes for young people who are involved in the justice system at all.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of research that's done on this topic, and things range from boredom to poverty to disengagement from school, lots of kind of contributing factors, extraordinary trauma, hopelessness. I mean, I can list them all. It's not easy to say, of the young people who come to DYRS, 14%, it's this reason, because it's not always, there's not always a clear correlation. But we certainly try to touch on all of the aspects that we can to understand, what's going on with this individual young person. Is it that they don't have something to do after school? Is it that they're disengaged from school? How can we bring them up to speed with their schooling? So really try to address the range of factors that might be contributing to the behaviors.
Okay. Do any DYRS youth participate in the Marion Barry Summer Youth Employment Program or DPR summer camps?
Yes, so that's a very big priority for us. Pretty much all of our young people fall in the age category. I think probably actually every single one of them fall in the age category for SYP. So getting them enrolled is a huge priority.
Okay, and do you have any stats about how many young people are enrolled or were enrolled last year, or the percentage?
Yeah, I believe, I'll try to find it while we're talking. I think it was around 70% of our young people participated in SYP. And that doesn't mean that they don't all have, like, some of them could have other jobs and they just wouldn't, they wouldn't need SYP as their source of income, but I can get the exact number.
Okay. While trying to be sensitive to the confidentiality, are there any children, particularly girls, at Youth Services Center and New Beginnings who are detained because they ran away or were truant or broke curfew?
Yeah, so the Comprehensive Youth Justice Act does not ban that. We're not allowed to detain people for status offenses. So there are none at YSC detained for status offenses.
Okay, and just kind of in our last few seconds here, when a young person does recidivate, do you have any data on some of those reasons why, even if it's self-reported by them, of why some of the rehabilitative efforts were unsuccessful?
You know, I don't know that we track that specific, like that level of specificity. I think it's an important question that we should be asking young people. Like, we do take a look at like kind of what is going on, whether or not it's the direct question of like what caused you to do this. I'm not sure that always young people could even pinpoint it themselves. But I feel that it is our responsibility, you know, keeping young people out of further involvement in the justice system is one of our core goals. And so when there is recidivism, it really falls on us to take a look and say, okay, you know, what have we been offering the young person? What's going on? Is it working? You know, without expecting perfection. I mean, I think to expect that a young person who comes to us typically has a relatively long history of justice involvement, to expect them to come and not have any involvement at all going forward is an unrealistic expectation. But we absolutely should be looking at what we're offering, what needs to change, if anything, to, you know, not have there be another recidivism example.
I'm over time, but thank you very much, Director. And thank you, Chairman White.
Thank you. So thank you, Director Kern. Guess I want to start off. Can you hear me?
You went in and out
Check
a little
1,
bit,
2.
but I heard that.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's got.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Check 1, 2. Can you hear me?
I can. Yes. But maybe you can't hear me.
Okay, great. Yeah, I can hear you. Yep.
Okay.
So when my computer goes out, I have to turn my phone on. So we're gonna work through it.
All right.
All right. So one of the things that is a hot topic that I'm pretty sure you hear about is the amount of youth involved in carjackings, right? And there's a whole discussion about is it the mayor, you know, the whole political thing, the council, OAG. But I guess my concern is for those who are in DYRS care or have been, what are we doing to help rehabilitate them to be whole coming back to the community? Because it's called the Department of Youth Rehabilitation Services. So can you help me to understand what the agency is doing once a youth get caught, detained, or get sent to DYRS? What does the rehab look like for that child to ensure that when they come back, return back to society, or as they are going in and out, if they already, you know, sometimes they get placed back in the community, what is DYRS doing to ensure they are rehabbing?
Yeah, so you did mention carjack. I'm thinking you're talking about armed carjackings in particular, just as an area of, sorry, there's an ambulance or something going by. It's a little loud here. As an area of great concern, and absolutely share your concern. As I mentioned, in terms of services and kind of our plans for young people, that it is individualized. So not every young person who comes to us for X offense is going to get X service. You mentioned a violent crime, and you know, violent crimes, they get more. They are cause for further concern for us. And like I said, oftentimes young people have a longer history of juvenile justice involvement when they come to us. With the more serious crimes, they do tend to end up being incarcerated for some time, and typically engaged in our New Beginnings program. So I think I have walked through a bit of what the programming is at New Beginnings, the level system. We have a bunch of different offerings for programming, including you know, decision-making, restorative justice, how to, you know, respond differently, how to resolve conflict in ways other than through physical physical resolution. So there's a lot of different programming specific to trying to reduce violence that happens in our New Beginnings program.
So one of the things you talked about was programming. I remember it now, last year's performance oversight hearing, there was an issue of youth actually participating in programs, especially the external programs that's not in the detained facility. Where are we in engaging, getting youth back involved into those programs?
Yeah, so this was an area of concern for me kind of the minute I walked in the door here. It was something that staff raised to me, that I had heard kind of through the rumor mill, that the services in the achievement centers weren't being accessed as much as possible. I mean, the bottom line is, you know, the number of young people that are committed to DYRS that could access our services in the community is quite low right now. Our numbers are low. So we do everything we can to get the young people who are committed to DYRS engaged in the services. And I know you heard from Ms. Moore from Progressive Life Center talk about some of the different programs we have at the achievement centers. We also have our workforce development program called the VOLT program, which has multiple different certification programs for young people. So we do everything we can to get every DYRS young person that we can participate in the programs. During COVID, we didn't allow for others besides DYRS committed and post-committed. I should have clarified that. Also, any youth who's had former involvement with DYRS is able to access all of the services that they could as a committed youth. But we have opened up just this month, because the COVID numbers have gone way down, we have opened up our Achievement Center programming to young people not committed to the agency, and our expectation and hope is that we will be able to fully utilize all of the services we have and fill all of the spots.
Okay, and so just to kind of get some numbers to that, how many youth have been referred to programs that should be attending versus are attending? That helps me to know. It's because it's so broad, I can't understand what's really happening if I don't see it.
Yeah, and I appreciate that question. I don't have on me, maybe as we're talking, I can try to get it to you while this is happening, just in terms of numbers who are referred versus actually attend the programming. You know, but to be clear, in our right now in home placement, we have 31 young people, DYRS committed youth, that are placed at home. So just to give you an idea of kind of the scope that we're talking about, and we have, you know, 8 different programs at the Achievement Center. We have 2 different sites. When you kind of do the numbers, you can see why it's hard to fill all the slots, even if people aren't really interested.
So sorry, and I thank you for that number. I mean, that didn't really answer my question. So if you can get that for me, that'd be helpful to me.
Okay, so enrollment versus actually, like, once you were referred versus actually participate, correct?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
So I did also hear you say you had 25 youth at New Beginnings, 31 in home placement. Can you give me a rundown of how many youth DYRS have under its care and where are they?
Sure. Yeah. Today we have a total of 110 youth who are committed. And I would like to talk. I can do a breakdown, but I think it's important to note that while 110 sounds like a very small number, our scope is much larger than that, given the young people who access the youth, who are at Youth Services Center for detention, our Title 16 youth, our post-committed youth, the families we're working with. So our number overall that we're serving is much greater than 110. But in terms of our committed young people, 110, which you asked about specifically, yes, we have 25 who are at New Beginnings. We have 31 that are placed at home. We have 6 who are placed in foster care. We have 8 who are placed in either a residential treatment program or a psychiatric treatment facility. We have 2 who are in independent living. We have 12 that are in another secure placement. So they could have been arrested in, like, Prince George's County. So they're in another detention facility. And then we have several at Youth Services Center, 14 that are awaiting placement
How many at YSC? I didn't hit a number.
Pardon me, it's 10 at YSC that are awaiting placement to another facility. So that would be they're moving to a residential treatment program, or they're moving to New Beginnings. They're just in a short holding pattern at YSC while we identify the appropriate placement for them. And then we have 2 young people who are in abscondence.
So how many are actually at YSC altogether? You just have those 10 waiting?
Sorry, so at YSC in total, we have 60 youth. So this is just today. Tomorrow it's going to be a different number, but this was as of the 14th, which was Monday. It could be slightly different today. But again, at YSC, we have our Title 16 youth. We have our overnight young people who are going to court the next day. We have our young people who are awaiting placement at a different facility. Yeah, so it encompasses a whole range of young people.
Thank you. Do you have a breakdown of, while we're on this topic of programming, of how many of those youth in DYRS care are getting programming outside of just being detained?
So you're talking about young people while they're in detention, if they're getting services other than the detention services?
Yes, so we said we know we got 110 at a baseline. Do we know how many of those young people are getting services, and we have a system to track where those services are, and just kind of a follow-up? Because the reason I asked is because I heard a mom say today that her child was in DYRS care, then another child was in DYRS care, and now they're in some out placement that's not DYRS. And so I'm just trying to figure out, if they were in our care, what programs did they receive? If those programs didn't work, how did they transition to another part, to someone else's system? And that's just an example.
Okay, so specifically with regard to that testimony, I believe that the parent shared that
I don't want to speak specific to that testimony.
Okay.
I just gave that example.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out if we got 110 youth, how many are getting other services outside of just being detained? If those 110 are detained or elsewhere, we know those are mixed numbers based on what you just said.
Yeah, I mean, bottom line is that every young person who's in our care, whether or not they're physically detained or they're placed somewhere else, is getting services or should be getting services. If they're not, that's something we're not doing correctly. What I can't give you, but I can follow up with you, is like, if you really want to know, like, of the 110, how many are getting behavioral health services, how many are doing achievement center, I can get you that more detailed breakdown. But I would just be speaking anecdotally that, as part, like, they come to DYRS, our goal is that they leave DYRS care better off than when they came to us. And that involves services for them. They all have credible messengers. They all have care coordinators assigned to them. There's a whole team that's assigned to work with each young person. And as part of that includes services.
Got it. I'll jump back in for my second round after we hear from my Ward 4 Councilmember Janice Lewis-George.
Thank you so much, and good to be here with you, Director. Thank you, Chairman White, for holding today's hearing, and thank you to our witnesses also who made time to speak today. I was in and out of meetings, but I was listening in as intently as I possibly can. Director, I guess the conversation right now in the city involving youth, specifically, we've heard so much sort of going back and forth around, armed carjackings and youth. And, as I'm listening in on the conversation and happening in the city, I'm hearing from, everyone about sort of, what's going on with our youth. I think Attorney General Carl Racine sort of corrected some of the, facts on like actually how many crimes are being committed by youth, and sort of some of the facts, but also indicated armed carjackings was sort of a factor there. And I guess I kept going, well, where is DYRS in the conversation? Like, why hasn't anyone gone to the Department of Youth Rehabilitation Services and asked them, what's going on with our youth? I think DYRS is tasked with one of the most critical components of our government, and that is the rehabilitation of our youth. and getting them back on track. And I think one of the issue times is too often we see our youth who are in the process of rehabilitation sort of not receiving the services that they need to be successful, and then ending up in the adult system or no longer with us. And so my questions today are really sort of directed, sort of figuring out sort of where there are lapses or gaps in services, so that we don't have some of so that all of our youth have the real rehabilitation happening and not ending up in the adult system or no longer with us. So I will start with some questions based on sort of where Councilmember White had already started asking sort of some of the numbers, so then I could better get an understanding and then dig in deeper there. So I appreciate the numbers you gave me on the committed youth to DORS in 2021 and sort of some of those numbers. Can I ask you how many Title 16 youth we have?
We have 20.
Okay, so we have 20 Title 16 youth, and just for the public, Title 16 youth means they were charged as adults. And so U.S. Attorney's Office then becomes the prosecuting agency, and the Attorney General's office is no longer a part of that. And I just want to make that for the public so they have a clear understanding sort of this process. Okay, now, how many youth committed to DORS in year 2021, I think, who were subsequently charged by the U.S. Attorney's Office with an adult offense while committed?
I can tell you that 4 of the 20 Title 16 youth are DORS youth. What I don't know offhand is when that offense actually happened. Looking at how long our young people have been at YSC, we're talking upwards of 400, 500 days.
Okay.
Those are old charges. So they're not something that happened like in the last 6 months.
Okay, because what I was trying to get a sense of is how many youth are sort of getting the services, committed to DORS, getting services, and then end up getting charged as an adult Title 16. Which is a huge issue, because if we're supposed to be servicing them, the hope is that we're preventing them from being charged
Yes.
as adults. So what I hear you saying is 4 out of 20
Yes.
are youth that were getting services and then ended up getting Title 16.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I mean, the 20 is the number that we have right now at Youth Service Center. That's not the entire, that doesn't include the young people who were at YSC, that older, were charged Title 16 a while ago. So, I mean, I can certainly look historically to try to get a more accurate kind of overall picture, but 4 out of 20 currently.
Okay. And unfortunately, I have to ask this. Did any youth committed to DORS in year 2021 have fatal outcomes?
In FY21, we had 1 young person arrested and charged with homicide and 1 who was killed.
Okay. Okay. I think, last year, I think we had 5 who passed away and 7 who were victims of violence. So it seems like that number has gone down, which is an improvement. And of those, I guess, the 1 fatal and 1 charged with homicide, were they, I guess they had to be, but were they released DORS young people?
Yes, I mean, yeah, they were in the community when it happened.
Okay. And so I guess, do you all take a step back? I mean, the number is low, and I'm very happy to hear the number is low. Did we sort of take a step back and see if the recommendation of community in those instances was the right call? And if not, what changes were made to redirect that?
Yeah, I mean, we look at the most serious outcomes, such as these 2 that we're talking about here, to try to assess how we did things, what were our decisions, or something we could have done differently. Right. And then we're also doing that with less serious offenses too, to make sure it's really, that it's a flag for us to be looking at what we're doing.
Yeah, I appreciate that. How many of DORS placements are in the district within the region and sort of also further away across the country. So essentially, what percentage of committed young people are placed outside of the district right now?
Okay, I'll give you some numbers, and I don't want to if it feels overwhelming, I'll try to break it down a little bit. But we have 6 young people who are in foster care. 5 of those are in Maryland, but it's nearby Maryland, so that's in the region. So I'm basically just walking through all the young people who aren't placed at home or in our secure facility. In terms of our group home placement, we have 6 who are in DC group homes and 4 that are in out-of-state group homes.
And is out-of-state Maryland, Virginia?
We have 2 that are in out-of-state Maryland. It's about an hour away. One that's in Virginia, I think it's about 2 hours away, and then one that's farther away across the country.
Okay.
Then we have young people who are placed in either a residential treatment center, which is essentially kind of a new beginnings type environment, or a psychiatric residential treatment facility. And there are 8 young people who are in those facilities, 4 in each. And those are all out of state, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Maryland.
Okay. Okay. And, I'm appreciative the numbers are sort of low, sort of out of state, as far as where placements are. I think one thing we talk about, you guys talk about on the DC jail level is trying to have as many people closer to home. Are there any barriers to committing more to our youth to local placements? Recognizing we have a low number of out of state, but still sort of, are there any barriers that we should be aware of that sort of inhibit us from having more local placements?
No, I mean, we have spaces in our local group homes. So we are not at capacity in our local group homes. And I say that noting, because an easy thing would be like, well, why don't you just then have all the out-of-state group home young people be in the local one? And the reality is that there are 2 reasons why we would have young people go to an out-of-state group home. One is very particular services that a young person needs, which our group homes may not have. More importantly, it's safety. So it's typically where we in good conscience cannot have a young person. It is too dangerous for their safety to remain this close to home. And I would say our go-to is always as close to home as possible. We do not, we're not trying to send young people away, but for really particular reasons, we do. I also just want to add, we do have 4 young people who are in psychiatric residential treatment facilities. We don't have one in DC, so there's really no choice for us for that level of psychiatric need.
Okay, that's important to know. All right, so there's a psychiatric need gap there. You've heard the conversation sort of around armed carjackings and carjackings of your committed youth, sort of, and I think the Attorney General gave us a number. Of your committed youth, sort of how many of our youth that committed carjackings or armed carjackings?
I can get the exact number. It's quite low, where that's the committing offense. I believe for FY21 it was 4. But as we're talking, I'll see if I can get someone to get me the exact number. But it's it's a low percentage of our young people for armed carjacking.
Okay. I can't see the timer. I think that my time's out, but I do have a number of other questions, sort of data. I'll just prepare you, so maybe you guys can pull it while Councilmember White's going on his round. But I want to get a picture of, I know we have confidentiality with young people, but what patterns you're seeing sort of from your committed youth, sort of patterns around their family members. Are their parents SNAP benefits? Do their parents receive SNAP benefits? Do they have a parent or a sibling who's incarcerated or previously incarcerated? What schools sort of are they attending? Are they public school, most of them public school students? And if so, is there's like a certain concentration of schools? And I'm asking these data questions because I'm trying to get us to do a better job of allocating resources. So for example, if there's certain schools that we're seeing a pattern of young people coming from, I would love for BBH to prioritize those schools for behavioral health specialists, because we have a shortage. So if you could give me sort of a data picture of who your committed youth are, what their social factors are, so that I can use that in human services and DOES and DCPS hearing to better curate resources. And then I'll give it back to Councilmember White and ask him if I can have at least one more round. Thank you.
Go ahead. Oh, you want one more round?
Yeah,
All right. So you want to come back?
yeah, we can come back. You got it.
Cool. So thank you, Director. I guess I wanted to ask, you started talking about the 110 youth that you serve. Can you give me an idea of what are the other numbers of youth that you serve, so I can get a roundabout number?
Sure. So in that 110, that does not include the Title 16 youth that are at YSC. It doesn't include all of the court social services, young people who are either detained overnight or detained by the court afterwards. So we serve all of those young people. Then we manage the shelter homes, which includes court social services, young people as well. Then we have our post-committed youth. So really want to be clear that young people who've completed their time with us in commitment status have access to all of the services after commitment. It's something that is really important, that I'm focused on, that our team is focused on, is continuing to offer and encourage participation after commitment. So we have upwards of over 40, I think it was 43 last I checked, 43 post-committed youth who are participating in services. We also provide supervision for a couple of young people who live in DC but had offenses in Maryland or Virginia. I think we have 3 of those right now. And then, we're working with young people in the context of their families, and really want to be providing support to families as well. So we have a parent group, so we're working with the parents. I think there typically are between 6 and 10 parents who attend our weekly parent meetings. So if you're trying to, add up numbers,
Yeah.
I think that gives you a feel for the scope of who we're serving.
So what is that overall number, if you can just give me a number?
It's around 250 to 300. I think I also mentioned in my testimony that we're opening up our Achievement Center programming to include young people who aren't committed to the agency. We just started that in the past 2 weeks. So that will also show some more young people that we're working with directly.
Thank you, Director. And then you talked about programming. How is the agency addressing trauma inside the facility and the youth who are outside the facility? What is are we subcontracting? Do we have on-site mental health services? How are we addressing those issues of trauma in DYS?
Yeah, so we have extensive programming around trauma, recognizing that nearly all young people who come to us have experienced trauma of some sort. In our facilities, we have, I can give you a full breakdown. We have several different evidence-based models that we use for group programming. I think I mentioned in my testimony about trauma grief component therapy, which is group settings. We also have.
Sorry, I might have to stop you here and there so I can get clarity. It's just provided by
our staff.
Yep. Or is it provided by contract inside the facility?
It's all internal. So this is what we have, a behavioral health team at both New Beginnings and at YSC, and so we do that internally. It's part of our behavioral health team's jobs. Sorry?
How many do you have on each team?
I'd have to pull an org chart, but I think there are maybe 5 to 8 staff at each facility that provide they do individual therapy, group therapy at both sites. And then we have a community-based team as well. So we do some groups in the community, but it also is a primary responsibility of our community-based behavioral team to connect young people to DBH's providers, which include, they have several trauma models that they use as well, but we don't pay for, this is all our own staff or accessing government services. So we don't contract for those.
So with each 5 to 8 at each facility, how many is typically there doing a shift? Because I know it's a 24-hour facility. So how do you manage that?
So there's always somebody on call. It is we have 24/7 behavioral health services available. There are different shifts that I think there are 2 to 3 at any given time, depending on the shift and depending on the responsibilities. So we break it down so that we're covering kind of the most needed hours, I believe, up until 8 at night, and then there's overnight and weekend on call.
Got it. We've noticed that there's been, I guess, in the last 3 years, an increase of Title 16 youth. I think in the last 3 years, probably had over 40. Can you give me the total number of Title 16 youth we have now?
We currently have 20 Title 16 youth that are at, they're all at YSC.
And we moved them from New Beginnings to YSC. And we had a few issues between peer-to-peer violence, staff-to-peer violence, and peer-to-staff violence. How has that been as far as calming that down?
Yeah, so the move of the Title 16 young people from New Beginnings to YSC predates me. So they've been at YSC ever since I've been at DRS. And actually, in terms of issues with young people, either assaults amongst themselves or towards staff, our numbers are actually lower in our Title 16 units than they are in other housing units at YSC.
Lower, do you have those numbers?
I can get you I apologize. I have overall numbers for youth on staff assaults, but I have had them have it pulled before because I've gotten this question about the Title 16 youth. I don't have the exact numbers, but I can absolutely get it for you.
Okay, well, you should, I think we sent the overall in the questionnaire. If you can talk us through the, I guess the youth on youth and the staff youth, those numbers, and how do you reach your goals? Because you set goals in those areas. You can talk us through that. I don't have a lot of time left.
Okay. I mean, for FY21 at the Youth Services Center, we had 84 youth on youth assaults, 72 youth on staff assaults. At New Beginnings in FY21, we had 103 youth on youth assaults and 50 youth on staff assaults. I do think it's important to point out, and let me say first and foremost that we take the assaults very seriously, and it's really important that our staff feel safe in their work and have the tools that they need to help try to prevent assaults from happening in the first place. We work with our staff extensively, extensive staff training, as well as with our young people. I mentioned the behavioral health groups. We also have groups that are focused on, specifically on conflict resolution and on, having a different approach to resolving conflict other than physical altercations. And we use restorative justice extensively in the facility. So it is very important. I do want to point out that assault is defined very broadly, and some things that you and I might not consider, like we might not know that it would be deemed to be an assault, are counted as assault. So the number, and again, I don't want to minimize, there have been injuries. An example would, a verbal threat is considered an assault. If we have a crisis management, safe crisis management approach, and one of the approaches includes, it's a de-escalation process, and one of it includes it includes a touch prompt, it's called. So you might touch a young person's shoulder. It's a way of trying to get them to calm down. If the youth just kind of goes like that and pushes the hand away, that's an assault. So it is very broadly defined.
Got it. I guess I also wanted to know about your ability to provide adequate services in the community. And part of what you were speaking earlier, I didn't want to interrupt, but about youth who are placed outside of the facility in foster care, group homes. And we have some conversation recently about one particular group home, but these other, I'm concerned that these, because that particular group home had one youth in the whole group home. Now, I don't know if that was an isolated situation, but are we at capacity at these other group homes? Because I'm concerned that there's a issue with youth and young adults that I encounter that, and that two things they always talk about: safety and housing. So I want to know from you, are we making sure that we're following up, making sure our youth are in safe living environments and being placed on a continuous basis?
Okay, so a couple of things that you asked. The group homes, no, we're not at capacity at our group homes. I'm trying to see if I can pull the numbers. But we also need to make sure that we have capacity, because there could be, like, we need to be prepared to be able to appropriately place someone. We don't want them to have to stay at youth services center or something when they should be in the community at a group home. So we do have capacity in our group homes. You know, and as you know, our responsibility is to be balancing public safety and appropriate placements for young people, going first to the most home-like environment. So we're always going home. You know, is it appropriate? Is the young person okay to go home? Okay, no. What's the next level would be like a group home setting. And so you mentioned concern about safety in the community, and this is where our teaming is really important, where our credible messengers are so important to our work, because they're really tuned in to what's going on in the community, understanding conflicts, and that combined with the work that we're doing with young people to resolve conflicts differently than through violence. So our concern is safety for the young people committed to DRS, as well as community safety, recognizing that we can't guarantee safety anywhere in DC. We can't guarantee that a young person going home anywhere is fully safe. It's just the reality of where we are right now.
I get that. I also am concerned, just want to be transparent about the budget of between $85 million, $90 million a year versus the amount of young people we're serving, and really the resources, adequate resources wrapped around them to ensure that they are rehabilitating. I have to digress because I know Councilman Lewis George wanted the second round, so I come back. Councilman George.
All right, thank you. Director, want to start with some of the broader questions I asked about what you're seeing as far as patterns. So can you talk to me about sort of what data is lending as far as who are our committed youth? What is their profile? What profile, and I don't mean race, gender, age. I mean, because of the work you've done. I mean, as far as, do they have housing stability? What kind of housing they're living in? Is their family or is a family on a voucher? Like those type of data points, so that I can we have a number of agencies coming up very soon, and I want to be able to direct resources towards the patterns that you're seeing from your committed youth.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm saying a lot of I'll get back to you, because I don't want to misspeak and go based on anecdote. I mean, I would say I do know that nearly 100% of our families receive public benefits. In terms of schools, I would be making it up about which schools. So, but I'm happy to get you that information. We mentioned housing. We absolutely have families that are experiencing housing instability. Fortunately, we have good relationships with Department of Human Services to make sure that we're having our families access housing resources. And of note, we have an 8-bed facility that's a transitional housing program that's available to DRS committed youth as well as post-committed youth that's managed by Covenant House.
Okay, well, you can I want you to get back to me, because I think your data is really critical here to inform the rest of our sort of other agencies who I consider to be partner agencies. And I want your data to inform that work. So I appreciate and working with you and your staff, getting some of the data that can inform that. I did want to ask you if DRS coordinates with the CJCC to identify how many youth previously committed youth recidivate as adults? Because that's also a measure of how well DYRS is doing. If our youth are being committed and doing the proper rehabilitation, they should not be recidivating as adults. So what's that number?
So I haven't gotten that data recently from CJCC. We just made a data request today for them to be working on regarding, some other things, but I can definitely ask for that as well.
Okay, I think that's critical data, because what I'm always going to look at from DYRS point is like sort of rehabilitation is the goal, right, of core goals. So one of those has to be that number of like how many of our youth are recidivating as adults, in addition to sort of how many of our youth are being committed and then getting Title 16 or, unfortunately no longer with us. So those numbers are like the critical numbers to me as far as evaluating DYRS's work. And I know you understand that. Want to talk a little bit about education, right? In addition to working at the Attorney General's office, I also worked at OSSI. And I know how sort of these things go hand in hand. And I want to ask you, what is our education? Talk to me about the learning environment for youth enrolled at New Beginnings and the Youth Services Center. Do we have different populations or different operators? I know last year we were talking about an RFP. At last year Oversight, I asked about the RFP for contractor for the school. So give me some information so I can dig in a little deeper on like how we are educating our youth.
Okay, so at New Beginnings, our longtime provider is Maya Angelou, and they continue to be our provider there. I'm happy to report that because our COVID situation has changed at New Beginnings, we're now able to have young people because we had to do things by housing unit for a bit to try to reduce movement of young people, and now they're organized by grade, which just makes schoolings entirely better at New Beginnings. There are a couple of young people at New Beginnings who are in the GED program as well. I don't think we have college students at New Beginnings, but I can double check on that. We definitely have some college students at YSC. So they receive, Maya Angelou receives psychoeducational, all the background information that comes along with the young people, person around their educational needs, so that we're appropriately providing not just regular schooling, but supplementary supports as well, whether that be intensive tutoring or what they may need to be progressing in their school while at.
Okay. So New Beginnings is with Maya Angelou.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
And I think that's all committed youth who are there for at least 9 months still.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, the date, the time that they're there ranges, but approximately 9 months. Yeah.
Okay. Now YSC.
Yep.
Are we still, who's the servicer for YSC?
Yeah, at YSC, our provider is also Maya Angelou. They were awarded an emergency contract that went into effect on October 1st. I think it's toward the end of its time, but I think it's being extended while they're evaluating the proposals for the long-term contract. So it's been a really great transition because they have tons of history working in secure settings. Education is it's more complicated at YSC because of the turnover that happens there. So they're managing, the overnight population, the short-term stays, but also the Title 16. And so Title 16.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So they do provide schooling for all the youth there.
Oh, okay. So that's interesting. So I know there was a whole DYRS MOA with OSSI and DCPS and that whole debacle. So that sort of debacle is over, and it's, which is a good thing, because it was a thing. I had to deal with it as well. And so we now have Maya Angelou doing sort of that sort of work, which I think is great, because there was so much instability there. And so that gets me to another issue that we've seen before. Sort of, can a student who earns, this is about credits, because this becomes an issue. Can a student who earns partial credit, like less than one semester, easily get credit for their coursework at YSC or New Beginnings when they transition to other schools, but specifically DC public schools and DC public charter schools? What is that credit transitioning look like? And sort of, can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, this is really important that we get this right because young people are learning while they're in our facilities and we want them to get credit for it.
Yeah.
So that's part of, our transition planning for young people leaving. So we not only have the school who is working with us on this, but we also have a small education team, and that's a primary responsibility of them to make sure that that happens.
Okay, great. And I'll continue to sort of monitor and work on you all with that because it's so crucial for those credits to be able to transfer, and that for us not to push youth end up behind and sort of that's sort of the prison to school pipeline and how that works, right, is all embedded in sort of making sure we're getting that piece right. And then as far as digital capacity goes, I know last year there were some issues, but I think you all were in the process of course correcting some of that. Were laptops, Wi-Fi hotspots, and all of that given to youth now?
Yeah, so we have, it's in school learning that we have, in-person learning now. So it was probably more complicated last year when there wasn't in-person learning. So we're fully in person at both facilities. But when needed, so for instance, for college courses, we have Title 16 youth who are taking college courses, they're doing that by laptop, but we have the capacity to provide the technology that's when it's needed. Okay,
great. Last year there were some questions about sort of, I don't know, this is still even an issue because this was about, the pandemic, isolation space and, I guess, sort of what isolation, DYRS isolation of youth, and whether that's something that's a practice that sort of is still carried out, and sort of if you all sort of report out use of isolation. I think last year was more so due to COVID, but there were also some like behavioral isolations. Can you speak to that for New Beginnings and YSC?
Yeah, I think I've got some specific numbers to share, but while I'm looking for it, first and foremost, we do everything possible to avoid having a young person be in a confined space. Like the facility themselves is already confining, but being in a room is very confining. There are times when young people actually request to go behind the door and stay there for a little bit for wanting to cool down, wanting space. So we definitely respect that when that happens. But there are times when behaviors escalate and a young person is moved to their specific room for a period of time. But during the time, so it would be called like a safe. It's for safety reasons only, safety of themselves and safety for others. It's not a punishment for doing something. And throughout the time, they are not allowed to be in that space for more than an hour without getting administrative higher level approval for it. And it has to be ongoing safety concerns. Throughout the time that young people are in that space, we are talking with them. We have our behavioral health team that speaks with them. Our staff that's there, our credible messengers, are really trying to process with the young person to try to get them to be able to agree to safety so that they can be brought back out.
Okay. Great. And I know you were looking for some numbers. I didn't.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's not finding it. I want to say that the average time is just a little bit over 60 minutes for the safety holds.
Right.
My apologies that I'm not. I know I've got it. I know it's in here. It's 69 minutes is the average time for a safety hold.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. I think my time is up. I want to, look forward to working with your staff more and sort of digging deeper into some of the education issues. I'm going to leave Councilmember White with some of the sort of post-commitment questions and sort of how you all are sort of helping our DYRS youth in their transition work. And then look forward to getting back some of those key numbers, key numbers and metrics that sort of of how we judge sort of DYRS success based on their mission as well. So thank you for the time, and I look forward to working with your team, and thank you to all the DYRS staff at every level for all the work you do with our young people and our youth. You have an incredible staff over there in every part, and those who work on the ground, to those who work in office. So I want to also submit my sincere thanks to their commitment to rehabilitating young people in the district. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Director, from your strategic plan and your objective 1.1, you can kind of look for that.
Yep.
Is to promote measurable outcomes and quality services. Can you give us an update on the standardized data management practices and the policies across the agency?
Yeah, so I want to say that our data collection and data reporting out is a concern of mine. When I got here, we were without leadership in the Office of Research and Evaluation. We have a number of really great staff who have been, operating without leadership in that role. So it is an area of concern, an area where I think we can do better and where we will do better. Fortunately, we're interviewing, and unfortunately, we actually lost, I think we went through 2 rounds of hiring to try to hire that replacement, and they dropped out at the last minute, which, you can't predict that that's going to happen, but it's been a real challenge. We've had to extend posting time. Regardless, we have some awesome candidates that are being interviewed this week for that position. And I feel, once we have that person in place, we're going to be able to have much better data reporting out.
Okay. So I noticed you also had a few vacancies. I don't know if your last answer clearly answered my question. So I'm concerned, I guess at a snapshot, there were several senior level positions, including chief operating officers, 3 deputy directors, general counsel positions vacant, and a plethora of other positions vacant. And I often hear from staff there that they're trying to grow within the agency. They're hitting the ceiling. The conversation around favoritism and just being transparent, and people just feel like they're stuck at this place. And as you know, in a workplace, it hurts the morale of the staff. And so I'm concerned about these vacancies in the agency, that during a time where we're seeing violence in the schools involving our youth and young adults all across the city. And I'm not just talking about the carjacking. So we want to make sure that the government agency that is rehabbing our youth and young adults are fully equipped to do the work. Can you speak on why these vacancies are like they are, and what's the plan to fix it?
Yes. So you asked about a bunch of different vacancies. I want to say when I got here, there were a lot of vacancies in our facilities, and that combined with COVID was leading to extraordinary exhaustion amongst our team. So that was prioritizing those hirings, which are complicated hirings. There are a lot of rounds to get people ready to know that these are the right people to be working directly with our young people in the facilities. So really prioritize that, and I'm happy to say we have almost filled all the spots. So that was a priority. The high level positions that you mentioned, we had to extend postings to get a couple of those on board. I talked about the Office of Research and Evaluation, that they're being interviewed this week. We did interviews last week for the general counsel. We've made a selection. There's some steps that have to happen for that one to come to fruition. We have selected a deputy who is supposed to start on February 28th. And we have our chief operating officer interviews this week and next week. So I'm confident that we're going to team fully up and going shortly.
Okay, what about this was higher level management?
Yep.
What about the other vacant and the other positions?
So I mean, we have some positions that are posted now, and our HR team is working diligently to hire for all of the openings that we have. Like I said, we've had some fits and starts where we select people and then it doesn't work out. for whatever reason. And I mean, you also mentioned favoritism, promotions. We're really prioritizing and making sure that we're very clear when we have openings. All of our openings are announced to our entire the entire DYRS team, so that people know that they should apply. We really want to be promoting whenever possible to recognize great work that so many of our colleagues are doing.
What do you have a policy or a perspective about hiring from within as the leader of this agency?
Not a, I mean, we need to follow the guidelines that are set by the HR process around fair competition and all that. So we, definitely are following all of the rules. But sometimes someone having past experience is going to help them score better on questions that we ask. So, naturally the promotions can often occur.
And do you feel like that's hiring within the agency?
Do I feel like there's hiring within an agency? Is that what you said?
No, happening. You said basically that hypothetically those who are working there may have experience that allows them to score more on their application. I'm just trying to get from you. Are you involved? Are you paying attention to that? Because I know you're fairly new to some degree, but I'm just concerned that I don't know if it's happening or not happening, but I'm hearing otherwise.
Yeah, no, it definitely is happening. I mean, one of the things that any of my colleagues could share is that we make announcements when colleagues are promoted, when new people come on board, and every time I'm sending out information about any staffing changes, it's including promotions from within. So I'm really highlighting that and making it clear that people should, whenever possible, make sure and apply. Sometimes people don't apply because they just think they're not going to get it, but we want to encourage upward mobility within DYRS.
Can you speak to what's happening with your restorative justice practice? You feel like working? You feel like it needs work? Where are we as an agency in that evaluation process?
Yeah, so I'm really excited about our restorative justice work. It's been, implemented in the facilities for some time, but it's even, I think it is expanding within the facilities as well. So whenever there's an incident, an unusual incident or between a youth on youth incident, young people are offered the opportunity to participate in a restorative justice session. So it happens with every incident in the facilities. Our team is small, where that's their full-time job, but we're working on expanding our restorative justice work into the community as well, and feel really confident and good about what we're doing on the restorative justice front.
Thank you. When I think about DYRS, I'm often concerned about the parent community involvement, because we talk about this village model. How is DYRS staff? I heard one of the ladies in the testimony today, because oftentimes on this hearing, we're hearing from testimonies from people about what's working, right? And we very rarely hear from what's not working. And so, especially like there are youth who are in the detention facilities right now that may, what we're doing may not be working for them, rehabbing them. And do you hear any of that? And if so, what are we doing to help address some of that with the youth and with the relationship with their parents or caregivers?
Okay, you touched on a couple of things. Let me just talk a little bit about our family engagement work, and then also just how we get information. So I believe I mentioned earlier, we have a parent group that meets every week, and getting parents involved in that group is a priority for the agency. We have a person whose sole job right now is family engagement. So that is what she is working on, to try to make sure that we are offering parent support for all parents whose children are involved with DYRS. So that's in the community. In the facilities, we have family visitation. Our behavioral health team works with family therapy for families with young people who are in the facility. So there are a bunch of different avenues where we're bringing families in, and parents are involved in decision-making. They are attending meetings with our core support team to make sure that we're supporting young people, and that their voice is essential to be helping us think through what's best for the young person. There was another part to your question. Sorry.
The second part, I was trying to figure out from the youth that's in, what are some of the barriers to help them get from one place in their life to the next place for those who are in. I think based on what you told me was that if it's 60 youth in YSC and 20 of them are Title 16, I mean, that's 1/3. And we know they're transitioning to a federal penitentiary, right? And I guess the other 66% will be coming back to community at some point. I'm just trying to figure out what's working with that population versus what's not working. Because when we hear from testimony, we hear what's working. We don't often hear what's not working. So we can kind of work through that as well.
Yeah, and I hear you on the testimony. I mean, personally, I meet with as many young people as I can to get really individual feedback on, and I think I mentioned before I started my testimony that I hadn't met with the young person CF, because I meet with every young person I try to at the end of commitment, try to during as well, but at the end to just say, like, what went well? What was the part that you found most helpful? What could we have done differently? I have a list of questions that I ask. They don't know it, but I'm collecting data because I really want feedback on how we're doing. So in our facilities, we have a youth advisory board in both facilities. So they're providing constant feedback to leadership in the facilities about what's working, what isn't working. And then, there are supporters around them that are constantly trying to get feedback on how things are going.
Okay, and what's some of that feedback? That's what I'm trying to ask.
Okay, so specifically, I mean, my information has been, a lot of positives, honestly. Young people talking about, as you heard today, about the support the credible messengers provide, what they're, sometimes youth are complaining, like it feels like the groups feel repetitive. The way things are cohorted, sometimes it feels like, I'm in a different place than the young person who's also in the group with me. So just trying to help us think strategically about how we're moving young people through programs. It could be that our programming isn't always fully attended because it just might not be the right program for them. So rather than just offering programs, this is where we're shifting some of our work to really individualized services. So look, I mean, if the Dolls and Dreams program isn't for you, if the music program isn't for you, what are you interested in? Because we are able to pay for individualized programming like that. So working one-on-one with them.
And I'm glad you mentioned credible messengers, because I champion credible messengers and the work they do and could be doing if enhanced. About 3 years ago, DYS testified about needing more money for more credible messengers. Then I end up putting money in the budget for more credible messengers, and they didn't hire not one more credible messenger. And so that concerned me. I know it's prior to your time, but I wanted to know from you, what is your vision to increase the quality of services and the number of credible messengers in DYRS?
Yeah, so you're correct. I can't speak to the 3 years ago to that request or what happened with it, but we have adequate credible messenger support. Every young person who's committed to DYRS has a credible messenger assigned to them. We've also added credible messenger support to our Title 16 youth. And we have an agreement with CFSA. We're providing credible messenger support to CFSA youth. And you probably know, we've worked with public library in the past. It was Shaw 2 years ago. We are working with them to provide credible messenger support at their Southwest library. And we're also working with a couple of DC public schools. We just started this week at Elliott Hine to provide some credible messenger support at that school. So we are good with our credible messenger support.
And I mean, in addition to that, I heard Ms. from Courtney's house talk about the work they're doing with those who are involved in sex trafficking. They work with LGBTQ youth. And I'm thinking about that organization, others like her, trenches, doing the real work. How is DYS ensuring that it's connecting with those who are connected with our youth? Because the narrative is my youth can't get any services unless he or she get arrested. And we hear that so much. And so we're trying to counter that narrative by touching the partners. How is DYS committed to touching those individuals who touch youth on a daily basis?
Okay, I want to make sure that I got your question, because it's you also, I thought we're asking about how we perhaps are providing services to young people who aren't connected with the agency. Was that the second part of your question?
Well, more so not DYS specifically, but the partners in the community. And I use Courtney House as an example that work with a unique group of individuals that come out of DYS. I think Miss Fruit said that 100% of her youth who came through a program that was connected to DYS all went to a higher adult system. And so if there's some better coordination with her or organizations like her, then maybe we can address some of those key issues. I just want to know from you, what is some of your vision to connect with these organizations in the community?
Yeah, so I can't speak to the accuracy of the data that she reported. I definitely I want to have a follow-up discussion with her, as well as with the person from CASA DC, who were talking about the services they thought they could be offering. So that's on my list of things to do after this. We have providers that we pay, which you heard from Progressive Life Center. Those are very specific programming that we pay for. There are other services in the community that are not for pay. Parks and recreation services, as an example. And this is where I don't mean to be repeating, saying the same thing over and over again, but it's like really looking at individualized services for each youth. And so someone may need a very specialized service that's either available by pay or for free, but we should be creative and open to going outside of kind of the ones that we're used to using or used to working with, to see if there's something else available.
Got it. And programming inside, and I hear a lot about like the barbering program and some of the dreams and dolls. Forgive me if I'm saying it. But what is happening? Do you all have trades inside? The one time they had a barbering program inside, I know because it was ran by Mako Price Bay. But what programs do you all have inside that's helping youth get skills and access to trades or be better equipped to make money outside while we have them in our care for a specific number of time?
Yeah, so we have trade opportunities both in the facilities and then also in the community. You mentioned barbering. In the facilities, we also have a digital art program. At New Beginnings, we have an automotive program. There's availability of getting first aid certification, safe serve certification, and we're doing hospitality training. So those are just some of the in facility work. And then in our at the Achievement Center, we have the VOLT program, which is our vocational program. Our most recent cohort was culinary, and I think OSHA and a couple of other certifications. Starting at the end of this month, we have another culinary, so that's safe serve, sorry if I'm saying wrong, that certification. And then we have a collaboration with Best Buy that's going to be working on customer service training for our youth.
Okay. Have you all connected at all with Amazon?
Yeah, there's we have done some job fair kind of work with Amazon, and I believe we have 20 people who are sort of in line to get a job with Amazon. That was the number that I got earlier today.
Okay. All right. And I have to wrap up in a few, but which I don't want to. But I do know that our youth are pretty much, there's a population of youth, especially the young Black boys, indoctrinated with music. And I think that that's a way we can reach them and redirect them. And I know that's influencing some of the violence in the community. How are we using our skill sets, our talents, our gifts inside the facilities to redirect and kind of cultivate the minds? Because we're in a facility for a certain period of time, which means that there's a certain level of influence over the youth during that time, because we can to some degree control what come in and what go out, right? And so I guess I'm concerned from DYRS about what are we doing in that time to kind of transform the internal of the person, because we know we work on the inside. The external is inevitable, right? Me myself being a high-risk youth at one point and struggling to find my identity and getting involved in things I didn't need to be involved with. And I feel like when people who had a higher level of thinking helped me to do some self-development, it helped me to put some other thoughts in my mind to help me make better decisions. And so I'm concerned about that. I don't know if you all have a music program inside, and if so, how are you using that to help the youth? I mean, harness their skills. They want to rap and express themselves through art and literature, but also helping with messaging.
Okay, so in our Achievement Center, I think you're aware, we do have the music program is our most popular Achievement Center program. And so we are doing that in the community. You asked specifically about the facilities, and I think you touched on a range of art actually. So that we do a fair amount of art itself in the facilities. We also have at YSC, the Free Minds Book Club. It works out of the facility, and we also do our own book work with young people. With regard to music, I don't think that we have a specific music program, but I definitely hear you and I'll make sure and follow up. I'm thinking, I'll follow up on that.
I think that's important. If we catching up with the time, really meeting them where they are, we got to speak their language and provide that's a draw for them, and it's a carrot, keep them engaged.
I agree.
And you may not know this about me, but I used to be a rapper once upon a time. My rap name was Papa Smurf.
Is it on Spotify?
Oh,
can I find it?
Back then, we was just getting into, it wasn't even on MySpace and Black Planet back then. See, I'm a little older.
Papa Smurf?
Papa Smurf. I won 2 talent shows, but I say that to say that was a language of the time, and that's what gave me self-esteem, popularity, because I was into that type of thing. And I think that, we have to embrace those who are rapping, but help them to cultivate their messaging as well, especially if they are in our care.
I agree.
But don't call me, I retired. We have to digress, Director. It's 3:30. I do want to note for the public that we have the record open. Let me see for how long. My computer is giving me problems. But you should, if you have a testimony which you're going to put on a public record, you should email rya@dccouncil.us. Again, that's rya@dccouncil.us to submit your public testimony. We have other colleagues who would love to read it, go back through it, and figure out what ways we can be helpful. Director, we sent some questions. We have some additional follow-up questions that you're supposed to send us over during the hearing, which you want to follow up on and make sure we get that. She look forward to following up. I want to thank everyone, especially my staff, for organizing this hearing, Office of Cable Television, and our other partners and council members who made this happen. Thank you all. And this concludes this hearing. It is
Thank
now
you so much.
3:34 p.m. Thank you.